Can everybody see me okay? I'm doing this from a hotel, so I'm not really sure if I'm doing it right. Jedi Master, here I am, brother. Snyder, Indiana, let's see here. Oh man, lots of cool people coming in. I love this. Makes me feel loved. You know how insecure I am. I need all the loving I can get. Cool. We'll give it a couple more minutes. Hi, Cheryl. Heart's back to you, sweetie. Thank you, Ray. I think you're awesome too. Jason from the UK. Yo, bro. Ajit. I'm not seeing anything. I'm using a iPad. I don't know about that. Can you guys see my face okay? I'm going to be bopping, be back. I'm playing with this new interface. We're constantly upgrading the webinar. Excellent, excellent. I want to thank you all for coming out. I am actually broadcasting to you live from the Orleans Hotel here in Las Vegas, Nevada. I've just finished 5 or 6 days, actually technically 6 days of teaching various forms of human influence, everything from personality transformation, how to rewrite the different aspects of your personality. If you have our Self-Mastery Supercharger program or you've been through our Identity by Design workshop, then you might be familiar with some of those processes. Blew some people's doors off. People went from knowing absolutely nothing about hypnosis to being rock stars in 3 days. I was very proud of them. They did amazing work in a very short time. We're here at HypnoThoughts Live, past 3 days. First day, we taught lie detection, how to catch liars. Had a lot of fun with that one. Then we taught Speed Attraction 3.0, how to make someone like, trust in as little as 3 seconds, or 20 minutes or less. And then we finished up today, this morning, with reading people for Fun and Profit, that's body language secrets, how to speed read people. And we actually introduced not only the art and science of kinesics, we also talked about face reading, which I'll be teaching 3 days of tomorrow, the secrets of face reading for personality, removing traumas, understanding and predicting human behavior. It's going to be fun. There's never been a class quite like the one I'm teaching tomorrow. I'm really excited about it because it really does enhance everything that we do, whether you're here for persuasion and influence reasons, attraction reasons, whether you're someone like me who is reluctantly a special kind of stupid, someone who feels compelled to go out and ease the suffering of those around them. That's one of my driving missions in life, is to simultaneously show people what's possible and to alleviate as much suffering in the process as I can. So today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite all-time topics. It's a topic that, let me see if I can share my screen, make sure I'm sharing my screen here for you. And this is from my series of trainings called Killer Influence, Weapons of Social Seduction. And today we're going to once again explore some of the ways to create a bulletproof system of hypnotic influence that will give you the ability to project magnetic charisma in any situation or circumstance. Now, obviously, if you could see my hands, if this is the scope of everything there is to cover or to learn about the field of human influence, charisma, projection, and all points in between, we have time for this. Okay, this is as much as we can do. So my promise to you is I'm gonna take you as far as I can in the time we have, and I'm gonna point you in the direction of where to go for more, if that's okay. If that's okay, please type in the chat box that you're okay with that. Excellent. Sorry for the infinite screen, but I have to do this in order to read your responses. Perfect. Perfect. So if you don't worry about the infinite screen, I'm going to bebop back and forth between your chat box, between the PowerPoint and talking. I would much rather talk to you full screen than be bored off my ass looking at a PowerPoint, because I know what it's like to be on that end. But I'm going to go through this as fast as I can. Okay. No marathon webinars today, I'm afraid, because I have more trainings to do after the webinar, so I have to go through this. But you're going to want to stick all the way to the end, because we have some amazing things we want to talk to you about. Some amazing things are coming up, and depending on how fast we move through the materials, maybe we'll do a quick induction, or I'll take some time to answer a few questions for you. Would that be fair? Go ahead and type. Okay, cool. Excellent. Excellent. I love talking to you guys. I love spending time with you, whether it's virtually or in person. Unfortunately, my partners over at NLP Power who manage the tech side, they say you're going too long. So, but and speaking of those guys, special shout out to Henry Krause and Brandon Burr over at the team at Jet Webinar and NLP Power for making it possible for me to reach out to you, for actually giving me the cojones and the comfort level to actually do webinars. And nice thing about the guys over at Jet Webinar is they are constantly working on improving the technology, making this stuff more and more user friendly. So if you got a business that you want to promote, you need some way to reach people. The people at Jet Webinar are very, very easy to work with. They're very accommodating, and they'll take the time to walk you through things. So if you're looking for that level of attention, I recommend them guys. So another shout out real quick to somebody who's actually not on the webinar and will probably never see this, two very special people who've been helping me day and night and day while I've been out here in LA, and that's TJ Ziebel. You guys may know TJ from the many different trainings and programs we've run, and his good friend and his lovely lady Tina, who has been helping alongside and helping to make sure that people get what they need and taken care of. So that being said, let's jump into our program for tonight. Let me see if I'm sharing this right. Yeah, okay, I'm sharing the screen. Good. Okay, so who am I? For those of you who don't know me, my name is David Snyder. I have a 9th degree black belt in the martial arts, which has absolutely nothing to do with what we're talking about today. I'm a certified trainer and master practitioner in neuro-linguistic programming under the founder, Dr. Richard Bandler. In 2017 and 2018, I was voted one of the number 2 NLP teacher in the world by globalgurus.com. I'm also a licensed acupuncturist and herbalist here in the state of California. I have a master's degree in Oriental medicine. I'm a certified hypnosis trainer. I have more energy healing credentials than I can name. A long list of martial arts applications and trainings in black belt, highlighting black belts in various different systems, all of which come together to create the systems that I teach. Most of the things I'm going to share with you tonight, in fact, all of the things I'm going to share with you tonight are 1,000% real, proven. They've worked over and over and over again. It is not uncommon for people who adopt these processes to up their closing rates by 40, 50, 60% or more in sales and marketing. It's very, very easy to become more charismatic and attractive to people. So this webinar is for you if you're interested in becoming more attractive, more charismatic, more persuasive, more influential. If you've ever been passed over for a job or blown a job interview or missed out on that ideal person or the person you thought was ideal because you didn't know how to approach, or you didn't know what to say, or you didn't know how to become more persuasive or charismatic, this is where you want to be. We're going to talk to you about some things that are both language-based, and we're going to talk to you about things that are not language-based, because many of the most powerful hypnotic operators, which is what the study of killer influence really is, the study of hypnotic operators. Hypnotic operators are phenomena in the naturally occurring environment that have the ability to reorient or psychologically position you differently in their minds. Things that can bypass or reorient the critical faculty of the conscious mind, which is the ability to analyze or rationalize or judge and make decisions. We can actually, utilizing the technologies we're going to be sharing with you tonight, we can actually significantly influence the direction of people's thoughts, and in many cases, the kinds of thoughts that they have. So that's some of the things we're going to be covering tonight, and you're in the right place if you've answered yes to any of the questions about dating, interviews, job performance, have a business you want to start, or in any kind of influence profession like counseling or coaching or hypnotherapy or the legal profession. This is a place you're going to want to be. Obviously, there's a picture of me in my martial arts world, so to speak. Real quick, just so I I'll kind of take your temperature real quick. Your answers are going to go by really fast. I get that. But just type in what area of your life you'd most like to utilize these skills in real quick, so I can get a flavor of where tonight's technique is going. Business, energy healing in business, career, PTSD, okay. Counseling, therapy, parenting, business. I'm seeing a lot of business, a lot of sales. Okay, we can do that. Coaching, okay. If you aren't doing coaching, are you some family too. Yeah, getting your family to do things would be nice, wouldn't it? Okay. Healing, sales, and charisma. Excellent. Okay. All right. I think I know where this is going. So we're going to start with. And by the way, I give myself complete permission and I'm warning you ahead of time. I may not stick to this PowerPoint. There may be some little squirrels or tangents that I go off on that I think may enhance what you're doing, that I might think are more or will give you a better ability to utilize these things. My goal here is for you to come out from this webinar with something that you can apply today, something you can start putting to work and getting results in your life. Because I know that if you can apply these things in your life and you go ahead and you get the results you're looking for, you'll be back for more. And that's my goal. It's a purely selfish, altruistic motive. I want to give you good stuff so you can go out and get good stuff so you come back and learn more good stuff. Is that fair? True or not true? Yes, or as T. Harv Eker would say, yes or yes. Excellent. Very good. All right. So let's go on. So that's my cool GIFIT, my cool karate uniform. By the way, those of you who are interested in martial arts, we are doing our second annual Secrets of Internal Power seminar. If you're into energetics, if you're into self-defense, martial arts of any kind, it's a 3-day camp. We're going to be going deep dish. I'm bringing back my special guest instructors. We'll talk about those things at the end of the webinar. You can just go to our NLPpower.com events page, and you'll see all kinds of stuff that we got coming up. So again, if you stay to the end, we're going to tell you about all the different ways you can take your learning further. We're going to answer as many questions as we can and still keep within our time limit. And if we can, I'll even do a small mini induction, or we'll do a small technique to just kind of clear out some stuff. Okay, so go ahead and make sure you stay to the end for this. Okay, so we're going to talk about, first and foremost, the 3 pillars of irresistible hypnotic influence. Now, in my world, there are actually what I call 4 horsemen of hypnotic influence. This is not exactly that, but the names are similar enough that I have to kind of point it out to avoid confusion with people who've had killer influence training or CPI training in the past. The 3 pillars of hypnotic influence that we're going to talk about are mastering emotional state control, the hypnotic horsemen themselves, and specific key language patterns. Now, mastering emotional state control. When people go to trainings, and again, I have the deepest well of respect for NLP. I have the deepest well of respect for conversational hypnosis, and most forms of influence training I have a lot of respect for. However, one of the things that happens over time is as systems are developed and become more commoditized, people look for ways to streamline the training. They look for what's sexy in a training, and they emphasize that, versus what people actually need. And there are certain things that are super, super powerful, and there are certain things that are just really cool. In my world, the things that are super, super powerful are the things that are really cool. And the number one really cool thing in my world is mastering emotional state control. And the reason for that is, if you're taking notes, write this down. If you haven't heard this already, this is one of the most important things you'll hear tonight. If you've heard it before, it's worth repeating. Everything human beings do is in response to a feeling they either want more of or a feeling they want a whole lot less of. So everything we do, whether it's going for a new job or moving, learning how to lose weight, it's because there's a feeling in our bodies that makes us want to move towards it or away from it. Mastering emotional state control allows you to enter and exit any psycho-emotional state at will to whatever degree is required in order for you, A, to manage the states of other people and redirect them in the direction that you want to go. Mastering emotional state control is a way of evolving your neurology in such a way that you begin to be able to gain more and more information from the people around you. And you do this stuff. It's impossible to be caught with when you practice the state control drills that we've done. Let me just ask real quick. How many of you have ever done some of our state control drills and things like that? Just go ahead and type that in. Okay. George, Daniela. Okay. Never? Okay. All right. So we have a couple of different ways that we do this. All right. State control is important primarily because without it, you can't get the second part of the ninja hypnosis aspects of what we do. Killer Influence teaches that to control your state, and in order to get rapport with people, you have to control your emotional state. When I was creating Killer Influence for and again, I created this stuff for me when I was creating the CPI system, which is all about the language side of things. I was trying to organize what I call the critical path of influence. One of the problems that people have with NLP and some of the other derivatives of those systems is that there's this massive ocean of information, massive amounts of information taught in NLP, and no clear path to navigate that material. There's no clear path to say, this has to go before this is more important than that. And people get lost in the sauce a lot of times when they go to NLP training. They're thrown into this big ocean of data, and they don't really understand what brings you the biggest return on the investment. So I spent a lot of years developing what I call the CPI model, or the change-it model, also known as the critical path of influence. Now, critical path is a term that comes from, I believe, software engineering. I believe. I could be wrong there. That defines the least amount of steps necessary to achieve a result, the omission of which will prevent that result from happening. So my job for myself was to find the critical path of influence. What is the exact persuasion formula that will allow me to navigate and gain my outcome in any situation or circumstance? And over the course of about 10 or 15 years of trial and error, studying with various other people, I derived a very, very specific formula that allows me to teach people how to influence in any situation, whether it's the boardroom, the classroom, the bar room, the meeting room, the courtroom, or the bedroom. If you follow the protocol that we teach, the CPI model, I'll outline it for you in a minute. You're going to find you're going to know exactly what to do and in what sequence, and you're going to get your outcomes faster. So one of the things that when I was creating the CPI system is I was trying to organize it. I had this problem. So I knew state control, the ability to control your own state, was super, super important. But I also knew rapport was the single most important piece as well, because I was taught, and I found this to be true over and over and over again, that within the sphere of rapport, everything is possible. Outside of it, it becomes very, very difficult to persuade people to do things short of a gun to their head. And so I was kind of stuck. I was like, well, state control is really important. And rapport is really important. Where do I put this in my formula? What's the order? And then it occurred to me, rapport is a state. It's a state. Therefore, in order to get rapport, I have to be able to control my state. And another reason that has to be that way is because if you do not practice solid state control technologies, and you heard me talk about your physiology controls your psychology. If you don't know how to control your state and you get rapport with somebody, you become at the mercy of the state they're in. And if their state has more amplitude, more push, more gravity to it than yours, you're going to get sucked into their state and not be able to get back out of it. So you've got to learn how to control your state. Now, the fastest way to control your state is through your physiology, your posture, and your breathing. The thing I tell my clients is that your physiology controls your psychology. So for every psycho-emotional state you have, there's a breathing posture or a breathing pattern and a posture that makes it all work. So if it be okay with you, I know I'm talking about the basic training stuff, and that's kind of where we're at anyway. I'm going to read these bullet points to you. Then what I'd like to do is I'd like to go ahead and do a quick drill. Would that be okay? Show me yes or yes. Perfect. Okay. Excellent. Excellent. So obviously the basic premise of any persuasion system is simply to get the subject or client to do what it is we want them to do. A short way of saying this is we must always have an outcome defined before we go into any kind of persuasion interaction. If we don't have an outcome defined, we're going to wind up somewhere else, okay? We have to make sure that the technologies that we use, the skills that we use, are in alignment with our outcome. An old selling trick, for example, to get rapport with people is to walk into somebody's office, look at their pictures on the walls, look at the trophies they've got, and talk about those things for a few minutes until you've built up a sense of connection, a sense of commonality. The problem with that is that it's inauthentic, in that you create rapport within a context. If you go in and you're talking to a sales rep or a manager who's in charge of buying about his golf game or his kids or something like that, you'll create this powerful connection, this powerful rapport within that context. The moment you attempt to switch it to a business context, though, the rapport lessens. You fall a little bit out of rapport, sometimes completely out of rapport, because you're flagged as having an agenda. So one of the things that you want to be able to do with your state control as well as your rapport is they need to be contextually relevant to the situation that you're in. That goes to your outcome. Your outcome is, remember, you have to be true to your outcome no matter what. So going in and talking about family, talking about bowling or whatever you see on the wall, that will get you some level of rapport. But it can also flag you as being a little bit insincere, right? Because people know what you're doing. So remember, it's all about going to the bank. And if it's a business context, it's about getting the people who want to sign on the dotted line. It's about getting people to want to believe in your product or service, to trust you and believe in you completely. So what we want at the end of the day, we talk about truly artful persuasion, is we want our customers, we want our clients, we want our loved ones or our potential loved ones to want to do what it is we want them to do and feel good about it. It's ironic, really, that the name Killer Influence is all about moving through the world, making people feel ridiculously good. That's really what it's about. Good feelings make people like you. We automatically like people who make us feel good, many times in spite of ourselves. In fact, on the self-defense side of things, I'm doing a very deep study right now on what I call the dark side of attraction. This is how evildoers, members of the dark side, the dark triads, the sociopaths, the narcissists, the Machiavellians, how they utilize the psychology of attraction to cause people to perceive them in a certain way. So, it's only the really bad, the really kind of not so intelligent bad people who look bad. The really dangerous ones are the ones who look good. And they utilize very powerful attraction technologies to make you believe they're good people, to tap into your emotional needs and drives and things like that. So we'll probably be releasing that in the future as an extension of our Killer Influence training, so you can protect yourself from the dark lords of the world, so to speak. But the idea is we want to connect with people. We want people to want to do the things that we want them to do and feel good about it. And one of the things that comes from that whole study is this. Even if you know the stuff that's being done is somewhat insincere, if it makes you feel good, you will start to like the person doing it in spite of yourself. So you got to be very careful. That's just one of the reasons why sociopaths and narcissists and psychopaths are very, very effective. They generate a feeling of liking. Yeah, it's interesting, again, on another sidebar, in some of the studies I'm reading, narcissists are almost always automatically liked, even when the people they're interacting with know they're narcissistic. There's some weird mojo that they have that causes people to want to like them in spite of that. Okay? Use that as you will. People make decisions based on the state they're in at the time. Therefore, if you're moving through the world making them feel good, they're going to tend to side in your favor more often than not. So if we want to create a specific outcome, we need to generate a state that within the client that is conducive to them arriving. Sorry, apparently my phone went off. We need to generate a state in them that is conducive to them arriving at the decision that we want them to make. The way we do that non-verbally is through a combination of state control and rapport. So the first thing I'd like you guys to do, if you can do this, if you can't do this, approximate it the best you can. I'm going to switch back to my picture, and I'm going to turn the screen off here real quick. So you can see me. Okay. Okay, good. All right. So first thing I want you to do is I want you to stand up straight, or if you can't stand up, sit up straight. I want you to, I hope none of you are driving while you're doing this, okay? I want you to close your eyes, take a deep breath in, Let that breath out. I want you to think back to a time in your life when you saw something you wanted. You decided you were going to get it no matter what. And you made a plan. You put that plan into action. And you nailed it. Home run. I want you to step into that moment. I want you to see what you saw, hear what you heard, feel what you felt, smell and taste what you smelled and you tasted in that moment. Most importantly, what I want you to do, without changing anything, not your posture, not your breathing, as an act of will, try to feel bad. Try to feel bad without changing your posture or your breathing, and notice what does or does not happen. You may notice you can't do it. Open your eyes, tap in. What did you notice when you tried to feel bad? Type it in there. Can't do it. That's right. This is principle number one. Your physiology controls your psychology. Now we're going to do one more state control drill. It's a little bit different, but it's going to show you the other side of the spectrum. I want you to sit up straight, close your eyes, think back to a time in your life now when you saw something you really wanted, you made a plan to get it, you put the plan into operation, but for some reason, it didn't work, didn't pan out, you didn't get it. I want you to remember that moment when you felt that disappointment, when you felt like, oh, I missed it, I didn't get it. Let those feelings come back. We're not going to stay here long. But most importantly, my friends, I want you to stand the way you were standing. I want you to breathe the way you were breathing. When you got the state, without changing your posture, without changing your breathing, as an act of will, try to feel good. Now, we're not going to stay here too long. You may notice, just like before, you can't do it. Now what I want you to do, I want you using your willpower to hold on to that negative state if you can, but I want you to shift your body back to the positive winner, I got this, nailed physiology, and breathe that way, and notice what happens to your state. When you know you've got it, type it into the box. Exactly. This is the most important thing you can learn today. I mean, the language is cool, the rapport skills are cool, they're going to be awesome, but it's based on this one idea. Your feelings generate your behaviors. They generate and change your perceptions. And the way you control your feelings, you control your state, is through your physical body first. Your physiology controls your psychology. It's practically, no pun intended, it's practically bulletproof. You could literally be in a war zone, and if you can control your physiology, you can control your psycho-emotional state. Okay? We don't have time to talk about willpower depletion and all the reasons why that works, but this is one of the things I want you to get. If you're ever going to approach somebody or do a TED Talk or do a presentation, whether it's in a singles bar, the bar room, the courtroom, if you can modulate your physiology, you can change your brain, you can change your blood chemistry. You know, you guys have learned power poses. This is the foundation of it, right? This is the stuff Amy doesn't talk about in her TED Talks and things like that. We've been doing this. We were doing this 10, 15 years before Amy ever did her studies. You don't know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about Amy Cuddy, the lady who did the research on the original power poses. We go way beyond this in Killer Influence and CPI. We have techniques like Master and Commander, the Rockstar Metaframe, where you can just step into these energies, these personas, and just radiate energy and charisma throughout a room. But it starts with this one basic understanding. Your physiology controls your psychology. Let's go back to our PowerPoint and get started. Okay, so that's your first set of state control drills. If all you did every morning was stand like a winner and hold it for 2 minutes or more, your whole life would change. Okay? Any state you're in, there's a physiology that matches. In fact, in body language training today, or last year, we didn't get a chance to cover it today, I actually told people there's a posture for flirting. Did you know that? There's a posture for flirting? Type in if you do that, yes or yes. Yeah. Okay. If you go back to our... Yeah, I'm getting messages from my webinar guys. Say, are you trying to share your screen? Yes, yes, I'm all set now. Okay, sorry for the little sound effects. If you heard that, I'm sorry. So yeah, if we want to create a specific outcome, we need to generate a state in the client that's conducive for them arriving at the decision or other action we wish them to take. Remember, all decisions are state dependent. The fastest way to create a state in another human being is to generate it in yourself first. Okay? If you generate it, their mirror neurons and their proprioception will pick it up, and they will mirror it back because their system has to do that just to create understanding with you. So you're already hacking their neurology just by learning how to hack your own states. Okay? This was one of the coolest things that I discovered for myself. And I discovered that as we went deeper and deeper into the state control work, the polarity drills, which we don't have time to do today because I want to keep this under 2 hours. But that's where the magic really starts to happen. When you could go into any psycho-emotional state from the most positive side to the most negative side and come back anytime you want and bring other people with you, man, you can change their entire reality and they don't have any clue you're doing it. It's really ninja. It's impossible to get caught. So use it with congruence. Use it with honesty and ethics and respect. Now, I'm not a persuasion cop. You know, you're all here on this webinar with me today because you want something. Something you really want. There's something you want more of, I'm betting. True or not true? Type it in there. And there may even be some things you want a whole lot less of. Would that be true? My job is to show you how to get it. So as we go through this material, I want you to attach those things that you most want to the techniques that I'm sharing with you, and not just to what it's going to get you, but why that's important to you, and what having that result will do for you. Okay, that's what I call a poor man's criterion values elicitation. It's also the fastest way to motivate you, to get you to do something. Okay, when you're emotionally invested, you take the actions that get you the things you want. And that's why we're here, to get things we want. Okay, let's go on. States. Okay, we talked about state control, and it's one of the most important things you can have. What are states, really? They're constellations of emotional, physiological conditions and attributes that tend to generate specific types of behaviors. They also create a filter to your perceptions that cause you to emphasize certain types of information and de-emphasize others. You've heard me talk in some of my trainings about the emotional refractory period. The emotional refractory period is a behavior isolated by Dr. Paul Ekman, whereby when we go into a specific emotional state, your neurology changes what it pays attention to. And it looks for the things that are in harmony with the emotional state you currently have. So to use a very basic example, let's say I'm in a very positive, happy, upbeat state. I walk into the room and there's 10 pieces of information in that room. 8 of them are negative, 2 of them are positive. The first thing that'll happen is my brain will focus on the 2 positive aspects of what's going on in that room, and then it'll start to pay attention to the negative stuff. Inversely, if I go into that room in a negative state, I'm going to zero in on those 8 pieces that are off first. You can invert that. If there's 8 things, if there's 8 positive units of information in a room, and there's 2 negative units, if I go in a positive state, I'm going to zone in on those 8 first, and those negative 2 last, and vice versa. So when I first read this, I realized how this would work with our state control, that if we understand this idea of state control and rapport, we can connect with another human being, change a state in ourselves, have it mirrored in that other person, and it primes their neurology to think about the information we're giving them verbally in the most favorable way possible, in the way that's most likely to get our outcome. So I thought, Man, that's so powerful. What I discovered after years of doing this, and my attorney clients, they can do this to judges, to juries. They can do it from across the room, and really change people and prime them to want to do the things we want them to do. This is also an aspect of charisma. People who are naturally charismatic have the ability to focus and project emotion. This is one of the reasons why actors are so powerful as hypnotists, because that's what an actor's craft is about. It's about learning how to generate a state, generate a mindset, a reality structure, and install it or suck you into it. But naturally charismatic people, they don't have to be actors. We're talking about politicians. We're talking about evangelists. We're talking about many public speakers have this natural ability to project emotion in a directed, focused way that sucks people in and it activates the emotions within them. And so this is what you're learning how to do through this foundation of state control. But over time, your neurology will continue to evolve. It'll become more and more neuroplastic. It'll change. It'll evolve. You'll be able to do more and more things with less and less effort. I have students now who regularly clear traffic out of the way by putting bubbles of energy, so to speak, around people, driving them and making them change lanes and do other things. I clear lines out at Starbucks by tapping into people's proprioceptive neurology, changing my state, sending a message, and then within 2 to 3 minutes, the line starts to dissipate. These are things you'll be able to do. You don't have to believe me. Just practice what I've given you so far, and you'll be pretty amazed. And all of this is really towards the goal of rapport. This whole idea of, I'm sorry, I keep bouncing this back and forth. Rapport is a state of connection between two or more individuals that opens the door for more subtle and powerful communications to take place. Here's the bottom line, though. Within the sphere of rapport, and right now we're talking primarily about physiological rapport, rapport that's generated through utilizing your body and state. Within that sphere of rapport, all persuasion techniques are viable. Bandler was saying this for many, many years, and I learned this from Kenrick Cleveland. Within rapport, the more rapport you have with a subject, a client, target, whatever term you use, partner, the less inclined they are to analyze or debate the information you're giving them. The less rapport you have, the more they go through your persuasion message with a fine-tooth comb or microscope. So the more rapport you have, the less analysis your subjects want to engage in. Without rapport, almost nothing works, short of a gun to the head. Okay. A state of rapport implies trust and connection and belief, but not necessarily liking. We tend to trust people we fall into rapport with, but you have to remember, and this is just one example, boxers in the ring are actually, when they're in that flow, they're in a state of rapport. They're not necessarily in a state of trust or belief. There is a connection. There is information flowing back and forth. There is influence flowing back and forth, but not necessarily trust or liking. So while it's important to understand that liking evolves from trust or from connection, rapport, you do not have to have liking to have rapport. And that's one of the things that Milton Erickson was very big on, is he could get rapport with people in such a way that even though on the surface they were very argumentative or in some cases hostile, sort of cocky, sarcastic, he could tap in and touch and get rapport with that unconscious mind to the point where that unconscious mind would just take his suggestions in and act on it. Milton had some life experiences that literally forced him to learn how to do that. And because of those things he went through, we can understand those things today. We're going to talk about authority today. Authority is one of the 4 pillars of what I call the 4 horsemen of hypnotic influence. Authority, as I like to call, is the king of the hypnotic operators. It's something that causes people to just comply. Your neurology is evolutionarily hardwired to be responsive to authority, to what we call alpha males or alpha females and things like that. And so when faced with authority, your neurology wants to comply. If you've ever heard, how many people have ever heard of a guy named Stanley Milgram? If you've heard of him, go ahead and type it in there. Okay. Stanley Milgram was a researcher in the I believe it was the late 60s or 70s. And Milgram wanted to know, he wanted to understand how dictators like Adolf Hitler or Mussolini or Stalin, I think it was Stalin or Lenin, could turn these whole countries psychotic, how he could get these nice, good people to do these horrific things. And so he wanted to study the effects of authority on compliance. And so what he did is he engineered an experiment. He brought in college sophomores. He asked them to participate in what they thought was a study on the negative, on the effects of negative reinforcement to learning. So literally, what he did is he created a two-room setup. There was a wall in the middle. On one side was a guy in what looked like an electric chair. On the other side was this row of switches, and there's a little plexiglass or glass window between them that the person on this side could look through and see the person in the chair. And the person in the chair was instructed to read a question. If the person in the chair got it right, nothing happened. If the person in the chair got it wrong, the student was told to go over and flip one of those switches. Now, the switches supposedly, as told to the student, each of those switches administered an electrical shock in progressively larger doses, from very, very minor all the way up to lethal. And what Milgram wanted to find out was, would people continue to administer lethal level doses of shock just because somebody in authority told them to? And what he discovered was pretty shocking. What he discovered was that in the vast majority of situations, the students continued to administer higher and higher levels of shock. Now, the good part is that the guy in the chair wasn't actually being electrocuted. He was an actor paid to simulate being shocked. And even after the guy is screaming in pain, howling in agony, the guy gets the question wrong. The doctor says, flip the switch. The guy on the other side is literally begging not to have to throw the switch. But instead of saying no, the doctor just looks at him and says, this is the experiment. Go ahead and throw the switch. In the vast majority of cases, students continue to administer lethal levels of shock to a helpless human being strapped in an electric chair who was screaming for mercy because a guy in a lab coat told him to. Do not doubt for a moment that authority is that powerful. In fact, a famous mentalist by the name of Darren Brown actually replicated that experiment. Turns out it works the same way. Now, there are some drawbacks to authority. Authority handled improperly without attractivity or something else to buffer it will cause pushback. It'll cause some kind of, I call it the fuck you factor. It will cause some kind of a passive-aggressive response. People will do it, but they'll find a way to get payback, right? So when you're demonstrating authority in somebody's world, do it in a way that wraps it in a nice, comfortable package. This is why we call it the four horsemen: authority, attractivity, affinity, and acquiescence. There's four horsemen. We don't have time to cover all of those today, but the bullet point here mentions authority, and I wanted you to understand how that comes across. If you're on the same page, if you're getting all this, just type in there, I got it, and we'll keep going. What is affinity? Okay, affinity is liking, sameness. When we like here, I'm at a convention with 800 other people who are into hypnosis and human influence and skills like that. We're all here because we have an affinity for that particular topic. When we're together, we can talk about that, we can bond. Affinity is one of the most powerful hypnotic operators that we have. Your brain, your mindset, your skill sets will all change depending on the people you associate with. In fact, I tell my students one of the fastest ways to make more money or get in shape is to move to an area where that's the norm. If you move to the area where that's the norm within a very short period of time, your psyche, in an effort to adapt, will cause you to change. You'll start to make more money. You may lose or gain weight depending on what the body type of the average person in that area is like. Affinity is one of the most powerful operators, environmental operators that we have. You will become like the people you associate with. So you really need, as a self-evolving human being, you need to really pay attention to the relationships you create. Okay. Most people are all walking around on autopilot. This is not unknown. The natural state of every human being is really robotic consciousness. So your problem won't actually be putting people in trance. It'll actually be getting them out. Because largely the trance most people are in are not useful for the applications that they have in mind. So our first goal is to move them from the state they're in to the state we want them to be in, which means we have to have an outcome, right? If you don't have an outcome, you really don't have a place to start. The next thing you want to figure out is, what is it they want? Just like I did with you earlier, I said to you, there's something you want to get stuff from this webinar, but that's not really what was important. What was important was what the stuff from this webinar will get for you in your life, right? I wanted to find out. I wanted to understand what it is that you wanted so I could make sure that I give it to you. Does that make sense? We take those two outcomes. My outcome is to give you information and teach you and show you where to go next. Your job is to link that. My job is to link those things together and show you how to get everything you want, and in the process, by doing what I want. That's really what we go. Everything we do in life, from a killer influence standpoint, is a win-win. Does that make sense? Is that useful or not? Okay. And the reason I harp on that win-win part is because there's a lot of people out there who have learned these skills or been exposed to these skills in some way, and either because of the way they came to it, how it was presented, they see these things, these technologies, techniques, as tricks, as ways to get payback or to take advantage of people. Those people inevitably blow themselves up. Okay, karma is, pardon my French, a bitch. I've met her sister a couple of times, Hope, which is good, nice, but karma can be a little bit of a bitch. If you adopt the killer influence methodology, if you indoctrinate yourself into the way we do things, you'll never have to look over your shoulder. You'll never have to worry about being able to sleep at night because you took advantage of somebody. You move through the world making everybody you meet feel ridiculously good and leaving them better off in the process. And what you'll discover is people will just start to give you stuff. They'll just start offer you free dessert. That's one of the first things that happens is people start getting free desserts and stuff like that. And we start doing echo technique and things like that. So it's all about knowing what we want, what the other person wants, and finding a way to link them using state control and rapport, and then finally our languaging. Okay. So we've talked about first rule, within the sphere of rapport, everything works. Outside of rapport, nothing short of physical threats or intimidation. In order to change a person's state, you have two basic ways you could do it. You can break their present state and induce or lead them into the state you desire, or you can paste the subject's current state and lead them to the state you want them to be. Now, the physiological state control drills that we just did a little bit ago, these are what we would consider a break state intervention. These are I once had a kid who was suicidal. His mom was freaking out. He had a heroin addiction, and every time he would start to go through rehab, he'd start to go into withdrawal, he'd get all suicidal. One day his mom calls me up. He says, he really needs help. I'm like, why are you calling me? I'm not his psychotherapist. He goes, he really likes you. Can you help him, please? And I'm like, okay, bring him in. I'll see what I can do. She brings the guy in. Now, I don't know how well you can see me, but he's on practically, you ever see the physiology of depression? Head's down, shoulders are slumped. He's practically bent in half, and he's taller than me. Right? And I looked at the kid and I'm like, oh, hell no. I walk over to him. I put one hand on the small of his back, not small of his back, but between his shoulder blades, the other hand on his upper chest. I popped him up into the attention position. So his chest was up, his shoulders were out, his head was back. He burst out laughing. That's how powerful your physiology is. What you guys notice, when you try to hold on to that negative state and you shifted to the positive state, in spite of the fact that I told you to summon up all of your willpower to do that, you couldn't do it. This is the power of physiological state control applied to somebody else. If somebody's in a really pissy state, a really negative state, all you have to do to break it is change their physiology and hold it there for a couple of minutes, and they can't get the state back. Okay? So you can do it for yourself. now you can do it for other people. Make sure you have permission to do it, because if you go ahead and put your hands on somebody without permission, it's called assault. And I apologize for that. I thought I turned that ringer off. So breaking the state, you could do it through physiology. But now, once you have that idea down, the next way, the most useful way I have found, not that breaking people's states isn't useful. However, there are certain states that have so much gravity, so much force behind them, that the only way to effectively manage them is to actually align with the energy of the state, move yourself in the direction it's going, and redirect that state from inside of it. It's almost like Aikido or Tai Chi. We don't meet the force head on. That would be a break state. Pacing is where the energy is going this way, and we align with it, and we redirect it from within, right? We connect with it, and we bond with it. And that's where you go next with state control. Once you learn how to go into and out of states through your physiology, you learn how to modulate your state by intentionally going into a positive state, bringing yourself back, intentionally going into a negative state, bringing yourself back. These are called polarity drills. We don't have time to do them today. We have a whole module dedicated to that in the Killer Influence training and the CPI training. And this is really Jedi level stuff. When you start doing this, you'll be able to take people to places you never thought you could. You'll be able to go to places and reach people you never thought you could. And you can change their state. You can match their state from within and guide them out of it. I think I told one story once when I was doing acupuncture. I was in my acupuncture school, and at the time I had to work on clients to get certified as a license as an acupuncturist, to graduate with my master's degree. I had to do like 1,800 clinical hours, and so one day I'm walking into the clinic, and as I'm walking to the treatment room, one of my students comes, or not my students, one of my co-students, I guess you could think of it. She comes out of the treatment room. She's holding the chart for the patient. She looks at me with that look on her face. A look that's just like, oh boy. And she just hands me the clipboard and walks away. And I'm like, what the hell did she just get me into? So I walk in, and I'm going to go back to I'm going to stop sharing the screen for this. In, and there's this guy sitting on the table, and he's just got that the energy is so heavy you can cut it with a knife. And so I proceed to take his name. I start doing the intake, and I find out that he's in his late 20s, early 30s. He had just lost his partner. He was homosexual. He had just lost his partner to AIDS, and he'd just been diagnosed with HIV. And so I guess you can imagine it really doesn't get much lower than that. And this guy was in such a horrible, depressed, sad, depleted state. I looked at him and I knew that acupuncture was just not going to be enough for him. I knew in my heart that the energy needed to turn him around had to become from within. So I did the only thing I could do at the time. At that time, I was experimenting very, very heavily with conversational hypnosis in conjunction with acupuncture and Oriental medicine. That's one of the big things that allowed me to put a lot of this more advanced material together, was realizing that when when an acupuncture needle is inserted in the skin, the brain actually dips into an alpha state. So they actually go into a slightly hypnotic state during an acupuncture treatment anyway. But what I would do during my clinical years was I would actually discuss, as I was taking their history and things like that, I would use conversational hypnosis here and there. And after I put them on the table, I would actually describe what each point did in terms of its action. As I was needling it, I would describe that point did using hypnotic language and actually installing the information into the subconscious mind. So I aligned the unconscious mind with what the body was doing, and people would get off the tables feeling amazing. As I was talking to this gentleman, I realized that I needed to change this guy's state before he got on the table. Otherwise, he wasn't going to be receptive to anything I did. So I did the only thing I could do at the time. I went there. I assumed his physiology. I allowed myself to feel what he was feeling. I went deeper and deeper into it until I could feel a sync between us. There's a synchronization that happens between one neurology and another when those meat suits combine. And so I went there. Probably know I said meat suit. You can laugh. It's all right. I went there. When I felt like I had him, I slowly began to change my state and my physiology at the same time. I started to slowly sit up, and I started to bring my energy up. And he followed me. And his state started to change. He started to, I wouldn't say he was joyful, but he was a lot more relaxed. He was a lot calmer. The grief and the sadness started to dissipate. You know, we got him on the table. We did the treatment. He got off the table an hour or so later. He's feeling it tremendously better. And people in my co-students, I guess to say it, I can't come up with a word right now to describe what my fellow students would be. They looked at me like, "What did you do to him?" Right? Well, all I did was I met him where he was at. I paced his state. I went into it. I connected with him. And when we feel connected, when someone goes in the same direction we go, just another funny story. Kenrick Cleveland tells this story. I first heard this from him. Once upon a time, Kenrick was working in a health club. And at that time, steroids were a big thing. And one day, he's working the front desk. This huge professional bodybuilder comes storming out of the men's room. He comes up to the desk. He pounds on the desk. He says, "God damn it! There is no toilet paper in the men's room." And Kenrick's, based on what I remember of the story at least, Kenrick's like, and his mind is racing. He's like, "What am I going to do? What am I going to do?" And then he looks at the guy. He gets angry. He goes, "God damn it! There is no toilet paper in the men's room? You are a good customer. You train here every day. You bring a lot of people. You talk about us. You deserve to have toilet paper in the men's room. This is not acceptable. I will not tolerate this." The musclehead goes, "Okay, guy, calm down. It's not that big a deal." Right? From that time on, they were best buddies. Right? Because when people are in a state, any attempt to break it, especially if they got a lot of momentum, a lot of steam on it, any attempt to break it is seen as resistance or antagonistically. It's much more powerful in many cases to notice what vector, what direction that state is going, align with it, and go further into the state, because then it kind of jars the person and they say, "Wait a minute, hold on, calm down." And they try, and in trying to pull you back, they exert more self-control. So again, this idea of being able to align with states is very, very useful, and why in Killer Influence and CPI, we spend almost an entire half day on doing nothing but drilling you on physiological and volitional willpower-based state control, and then how to transfer that into the neurology of another human being. It's one of the most powerful modules that we have, of many powerful modules, but it's the one that just keeps getting stronger over time. Okay, I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint right now, but before I do, just type in if you're with me on this so far. Cool. Is this useful? Yes or yes? Excellent. Excellent. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and jump back to the PowerPoint and see where I'm at, okay? Hold on a second. I got to go back to screen share. Excellent. Okay. So pacing, we've talked about breaking state. We break a state. We've covered this. One of the ways that we can use break states or breaking a person's state is often used in hypnosis through something called shock or rapid inductions. If you were at HypnoThoughts at all this past weekend, you probably saw a lot of people doing shock and rapid inductions. You can do them conversationally as well. They just take a lot more finesse and timing to pull off. Pattern interrupts, we just talked about those. Well, pattern interrupts we didn't actually talk about, but breaking state, pattern interrupts, probably the most famous pattern interrupt in the hypnosis world is known as the handshake interrupt. And you can play with this. Walk up to somebody, extend your hand like you're going to shake their hand, and notice how many times they reach out. Put your hand down, couple minutes later, reach out to shake their hand. Notice what happens. They'll reach out to touch your hand again. It's a hypnotically programmed response. Now, in the handshake interrupt, what actually happens is as you extend your hand and they extend theirs, before they can touch your hand, you grab their hand, lift it up and spread it across their face and monopolize their field of vision. What happens is, if, let's say, in a handshake, there are 4 phases: the beginning, the initiate, the touch, the shake, the break, and so forth. If you interrupt at any point in that handshake, if you don't let the handshake complete, the neurology goes into confusion. Neurology doesn't like to be confused. When it goes into confusion, it doesn't like it. It will look for the first command that makes sense to get out of confusion. So they're literally in a trance. You interrupt it. They go into a state of confusion. They're looking for guidance. You can literally give suggestions while holding their hand and talking to them, and then retouch their hand and put it back down. That takes a little bit more finesse than most people have without real in-depth training. But the idea of pattern interrupts is very, very powerful if you understand how to do it. Okay, so the startling commands, loss of physical or mental equilibrium, are all ways that we can shock the system into that momentary confusion, giving us a window to insert commands. Inductions by breaking states take more confidence. I just said that. I'm really good at paraphrasing these slides. So in Killer Influence, we're going to teach you a very specific conversational pattern interrupt. It's called Stop, Start, and Now. And it's really, really useful when a conversation starts to go in a direction that you don't like. You could literally say, stop for a moment, or stop doing what you're doing. Start doing this instead now. Maybe if we have time, we'll include it at the end. Induction by breaking state. All states in the average untrained human being are internal processes that are running mostly outside of conscious awareness. We've kind of beat that to death. When we interrupt these processes, the mind goes into confusion. When the mind goes into confusion, it sounds awful like what I just said, doesn't it? Let's move on. Induction by matching. We talked about that in terms of pacing. This method or category of methods involves observing the current state of the subject, making ourselves as much like them as possible, leading that person from their current state to the state we desire them to be in. This method tends to rely more on gradual progressions of state rather than an abrupt shift. Now, this is actually true verbally as well as physically. How many people here are familiar with the echo technique? Go ahead and type in yes if you know what the echo technique is. Excellent. The echo technique is a textbook example of induction by matching. Okay? The most powerful words any human being can hear at any given moment are the words that just came out of their mouth. Now, earlier we talked about the things that you wanted to get from this training, not the techniques themselves, but what results in your life those techniques will give you. That goes to a phenomena in the human nervous system known as criterion values. Criterion values are our emotional reasons for why we do things, and the checklist that lets us know we're getting it. When a person speaks, whether it's a very superficial conversation or whether it's a very intimate, emotional, in-depth conversation, the words they use are either directly or indirectly linked to the things they most want or don't want emotionally. And so when you talk to people using their words, you're actually stimulating, either more directly or less directly, the emotional drivers and the checklist by which they validate that something is good or desirable in their world. This is one of the reasons why when you talk to people using their words, you have their undivided attention. And attention is the currency of the covert hypnotist. Attention is the ability, is the currency of relationships. You want to see a healthy relationship, look at the amount of attention being paid from one partner to the other. If look at your children. If your children can't get your attention one way, they'll get it another, right? Attention is the currency of relationships. When you speak to somebody using their words, this would be an example of induction by matching. You get their full attention because you're talking about their favorite subject. They don't have to work to translate what you said. They have complete understanding of the words coming out of your mouth, and they just fall into deeper and deeper levels of rapport. Okay, and it becomes very, very easy to guide people from within that linguistic interaction. Okay, so you could do it physiologically, you could do it verbally. Let's talk about pillar number 2, the hypnotic horseman. Okay, authority. We touched on it a little bit. When we talk about authority, we're really talking about, in many cases, influence. But human beings are very, very sensitive to hierarchies, to social status, to any form of power. When we perceive people, and this is something you need to understand, this is actually a recent discovery. Did you know that there is a power bias in most human beings? Most human beings, when they see somebody in power, they defer to them because there's a part of them that actually believes that if you're in power, you deserve to have it. It's a natural cognitive bias. We tend to believe what people with power say because they're in power. It's a very weird thing. Now, in terms of human influence and being strategic with this, human beings become more suggestible to the perception of authority. Notice what I said. To the perception of authority. You can cause people to perceive you as having authority without actually owning it. But there are 4 kinds of power that are useful to understand. The first one is what we call executive power. And that's you think of this like a military general or a police officer or a corporate CEO. They have the ability to enforce their rules, either through punishment of some kind, through firing you, through rewarding you. They have the ability to enforce their I don't want to use this word, it sounds so dictums, for lack of a better word. And so that's a very obvious form of authority, executive power. But there's 3 other kinds that can be brought to bear. And it's interesting, it's kind of like rock, paper, scissors many times, is that some types of authority can be used to counter other types of authority. So one of the most powerful secondary forms of authority is directed emotional expression. In other words, passionate entreaties. You see people get up and make, like Martin Luther King, getting up and making these powerful, impassioned, emotional speeches that are clear and concise and eloquent. This level of power, this emotional projection, has the ability to usurp or to overcome executive power. It's happened many times. You see movies about this where there's a court case going on and the lawyer gets up and he makes this beautiful argument, and then the other person gets up and makes this emotional plea, and all of a sudden the jury's swayed, and these kinds of things happen. The key to doing that is that in order for it to work, the emotional output has to be organized. It has to be delivered in a very concise, efficient manner. If it's hysterical and all over the map, then you just look like a spaz. You just come across as being someone who's not really in control of himself. So the emotion has to be there, but it has to be there as fuel. It has to direct and propel a well-crafted, concise presentation. Okay, when you can do that, then you have a lot of power. You have the ability to sway and move people. Okay, another form of authority is what we call. I'm drawing a blank. I'll have to come back to it. The fourth type of authority is like our power is what I call mastery of conversational dynamics. Mastery of conversational dynamics is the ability to, like, say you're in a room full of alpha males, right? The ability to manage that room, in other words, to get these people communicating to these people and talking to these people, and just kind of manage and juggle these personalities. Here at Hypno Thoughts, it's you get a lot of trainers from a lot of different worlds, and one of the things as someone who runs a convention, you have to learn how to do is you have to handle and manage these strong personas, some of whom don't get along or in disagreement. So you have to learn how to master and maneuver people. This is a very powerful form of authority. It's probably the most rare because it's one that takes a really intense understanding of social dynamics to wield effectively. But that's kind of what you're here to learn, is this understanding of conversational dynamics. Anytime you can tell people about themselves, anytime you can demonstrate knowledge about people that they didn't tell you and you couldn't have known any other way, they will tend to cede authority to you. They will become more and more suggestible to you because they feel you know them better than anybody else. You have insights and you have wisdom about them, and so they become hyper suggestible. That's why one of the most powerful techniques you can learn in terms of human influence, aside from face reading and graph analysis, which I teach, is cold reading. Cold reading is the ability to observe people and pay attention to things and make inferences about them and state them in such a way that the person believes that you know things about them, right? And in many cases you do, especially if you're doing face reading or graph analysis, which is actual, has thousands of years of actual observational science behind it. But cold reading can just be what you see in the moment as well, and then you're making good guesses. Either way works, because the moment somebody accepts something you've said is true, they tend to believe everything as being true. It's called the Barnum effect. So if I give you 9 elements, like I'm cold reading you, for example, and I'm wrong 9 times, and I'm right on the 10th one, that one that's right will override all the other 9, and you'll start to think that I know stuff. It's very weird. I didn't make the rules; I just report them. But these are ways that you can begin to exert authority in people's worlds and have them become more and more suggestible to you. Now, if you do this within the bubble of state control and rapport, it's even more powerful, right? Everything that we're talking about builds and accelerates the thing that went before, okay? Moving on. Affinity. Affinity we talked about a little bit earlier. Affinity is that desire to be part of the group, to have friends, to be liked. Some people might call it social proof. You know, if you walk into a room and somebody vouches for you, and the person who's vouching for you has a lot of friends, then all the friends suddenly like you because you're just like them. We like people who are like themselves, or who are like us, and that's pretty much universal. Everywhere we go, we're always searching for the people who are like us. Okay, that's a physics phenomenon, and it translates into our neurology as well. All right, I'm just going to take a brief moment. I want to go back and look at the chat room. And if you haven't, I can't guarantee I'm going to answer every question, but I want to just check in with you guys and see if you're with me so far. Type yes if you are. If you have questions, type them in, and we'll try to get to them at some point. Yeah, it'll be available afterwards. Okay, you guys look like you're all with me. I'm glad. Excellent. We're moving right along. I'm going to try and move a little bit. Pardon me, I'm going to move a little bit faster. I would recommend right now, because I think if I know where I'm going based on what I saw in the PowerPoint earlier, you're going to need some extra sugar. So if you have chocolate laying around or something that will spark your brain, I suggest best research on cold reading is Completely Cold by Kenton Kneppers. I think is one of the books I used very early on. Now I don't even bother. Most of my cold reading is warm now because I do face reading. And because I know NLP and I know the sensory acuity drills from NLP, I see a lot of things anyway. So most of my cold reading is really warm now, but it doesn't have to be. Okay, so let's see here. So we talked about affinity, we talked about friends. And this brings us to, again, pillar number 3, which is actually your language. How to speak, what to speak. We're going to talk about 3 of the most powerful language patterns that exist. And one of the problems, again, I love NLP. I have a deep, abiding love of it. It has changed my life. I just have huge problems with the way most people teach it, or don't teach it, as the case may be. One of the problems that you have in many approaches to hypnotic languaging is that there are over 30, depending on how you parse them, over 30 distinct different language patterns that you could use at any given time. The problem is you don't know which ones are more important than the others. You don't know which ones are more universal than others. So I spent a good chunk of my life researching this, and one of the biggest pieces I ever got came from a brilliant man by the name of Kenrick Cleveland. You've heard me mention him several times. I have tremendous respect for him. I think he is the undisputed king of conversational influence. He turned me on to something called the 18 most powerful words in the English language. I went deep into that study and came up with the Magnificent Seven plus or minus two, which are the 7 most powerful language patterns that exist. And the reason that's true is because they are direct analogs to filters in your neurology. In other words, the very building blocks of your perceptions of the world, internally and externally, are directly built from these language patterns. They're actually, your language patterns are built from these structures. But because we're going the opposite direction, I'm going to say that so you can't actually hear or speak in these language patterns without your brain taking on the internal structure inherent in the language that you're using. They work off of this idea known as presupposition. Now, a presupposition is the linguistic equivalent of an assumption. There are certain things that your body and your neurology must, and types of information that your body must generate and act and build upon as if they were true, just to understand the sentence. I'll give you a really quick one, a really quick example right now, just to prove to you how that actually works. I'm going to state a very powerful. I'm going to give you a sentence. It's not going to be a great sentence. I'm going to have spaces in between it, and the spaces are deliberate. And I want you to just pay attention to what your brain does as I do this, okay? The camel that was green with one leg rolled backwards up the hill and exploded. Now, I know that the people who love animals are saying, that's horrible, but that's really not the point. Now, I'm going to ask you a real quick question. When I said camel, first thing that popped into your head, the first picture that popped into your head, what color was your camel? Tan, right? Brown, right? What happened when I said green? You had to back the picture up and turn it green, didn't you? When I said camel, how many legs did it have? 4. And then what happened? Then you had to cut 3 legs off, right? Or 2 legs off, right? My point is, let me go back to the point is here. Actually, I want to see you guys. So let me do this. It goes through all of its files, and it looks for every reference that it has to the word camel, and it spits that up to your mind. It's not until I give you an odd sentence like that with spaces in between to allow you to become aware of the information that you even know this process is happening. Everything about the camel was an assumption your neurology made. When you had to back up your picture, change it, and move forward, you engaged in what I call cognitive editing, which is analogous to creating friction. When you put descriptors behind the things they describe, hypnotically speaking, you're creating more drag. You're making your information harder to process. Okay? And so one of the things we do in Killer Influence, one of the things we do in CPI, in most of our hypnotic training classes, but really it's in CPI where we go deep into the linguistic aspects. And then in Killer Influence, we take the deep linguistics and we expand on that into the realm of hypnotic operators, things that don't even involve language, that allow you to just influence people. I was going to use a politically incorrect metaphor, but I decided against it. Let's see. How is it called, the exercise you can change? That's a different tack. We don't have time to cover that one today, I'm afraid, Mia. But it's an extension of our state control drills. If you can do the state control drills really, really well, then actually doing that to lines or causing people to like you from across the room, very, very easy to do. Very, 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 and it's very consistent. But unfortunately, we don't have time to cover that here. So the reason I gave you that sentence was because I wanted you to understand that your brain is constantly filling in details that it's assuming were meant in your communication, but that's not actually what's happening. Just to understand what a camel is, you had to access all your references to it. So are we kind of clear on that concept? Okay, very cool. Let's go into language. Go get your chocolate. If you don't have it, get it. You're going to need it. Get out a pen, get out a paper. You're going to be doing some writing. Okay? Magnificent language patterns. Now, the language patterns we're going to discover or talk about. Actually, let me put I have to go ahead and put this screen share back on. I keep forgetting to do that. I apologize. Okay. Let's talk first these magnificent language patterns. What are they? The first one, these are the most powerful hypnotic language patterns on the planet. Of the 30 to 40 that exist, why are they? A, they're completely covert. They can instantly induce trance when used properly. They do not sound like a language pattern. They work in any combination. They're easy to use anytime, anywhere. Now here's, they're all cool, but here's the biggest reason. The biggest reason that these are the most powerful hypnotic language patterns in the world is because you can't think. You can't create a thought without using them. Therefore, just the act of hearing them causes your brain to create thoughts based on the structure of the language pattern. In other words, using the 3 language patterns I'm going to share with you today, I can cause you to become aware of anything I want. I can trigger your brain to initiate a state, process, or experience I want. I can make anything you want, anything I want seem to cause anything I want. And I can cause your brain to assign any meaning I want to whatever causes I create. We're going to talk about that. That's a whole lot to swallow all at once. But that's exactly what these 3 language patterns do. And they're so powerful, they never call it, and so covert, they never flag you as doing something weird or unethical or anything like that. They are such fundamental, powerful building blocks of our natural way of thinking that we can't not use them. We're just going to learn, and the best part is you've been using these things all of your life. You just didn't know it. Now you're going to learn to use them more deliberately. You guys ready? Yes or yes? Cool. All right. Let's jump in. Nuclear-powered hypnotic language. They're overlooked. They're underestimated. They don't flag you as doing anything weird. Okay. In my world, we talk about the sexy stuff. The sexy stuff will get you caught. When people think about NLP, covert hypnosis, they automatically start thinking about things like embedded commands, thought binds, quotes patterns, double binds. These are things that, or negations. These are all things that have been so overused and over-publicized that when people have any idea, any kind of training whatsoever, and they think somebody might be trying to influence them, those are the first things they look for. They take more skill to use. They're not as contextually free. In other words, you have to actually kind of maneuver the conversation to be able to use them. So they take more skill to use, and they're not nearly as powerful as the ones we're going to cover. The ones we're using, you'll never get caught. I challenge you to get caught using them. Using them, they work in writing, they work over the phone, they work in text messaging, they work in emails, they work any place linguistic communication is being applied. They work in groups just as powerfully as they work one-on-one. They're just super, super powerful. Okay? These 3 patterns are awareness, awareness, cause and effect, complex equivalence, and of the 3, the most powerful is the awareness language pattern. Now, you got to ask yourself, why is the awareness language pattern so powerful? It's because in order for you to do anything, you first have to become aware of it. It first has to enter either your conscious awareness or your unconscious awareness. But these are also presuppositions. Now, one of the cool things about the awareness language pattern, let me jump to that page here. And by the way, words in this category include notice, realize, aware, understand, recognize, and comprehend. These are what we call awareness verbs, and anything that follows it is presupposed. In other words, one of the powers of the awareness language pattern is that it will cause your brain to undergo the state, process, or experience that follows it. So I want you to sit back now, and I want you to play a little game with me. I am going to use some of these words, and what I want you to do is do your best to resist the experience I'm about to describe, okay? So as you notice yourself sitting in the chair, realizing or becoming aware of the weight of your butt on the seat, you may begin to realize there's an interesting sensation beginning to form in the tip of your nose. And as your awareness travels to the tip of your nose, you may recognize another sensation moving into the big toe of your right foot. And as you begin to recognize that big sensation in the big toe of your right foot, you may begin to realize, comprehend, that your mind and your awareness is traveling to every body part that follows the awareness presupposition. And then you may begin to realize that not only is your awareness traveling to those body parts, but it's also becoming aware of the feelings and the awarenesses I've described, utilizing these words, even though I told you to resist them. What'd you notice? Type it in the chat box. That's right. Now, that's pretty much worst case scenario. I'm telling you what I'm going to do. I'm asking you to actively resist. I did not use any negations at all, which is an old cheap trick. You know, don't think about a white elephant wearing a pink tutu. I didn't even do that. All I asked you to do was listen and resist. And you couldn't resist. The reason you couldn't resist, because in order for you to process everything I said, you have to become aware of it. Okay? So let's move on. Okay, so now that was, there's a couple of games you can play with this. You could actually just string these together in an exercise we call word salad. So I'm just going to give you a real quick example of this. As you begin to notice how powerfully these language patterns can direct your awareness in certain direction, you may begin to realize that you can utilize this in normal everyday conversations to cause people to become aware of exactly the data or information you want them to become aware of, and to cause them to understand only those points in the way you want them to. And as you recognize the power of this language pattern, you may begin to comprehend how you can use it in every aspect of your life to get people to think the way you want them to think about the things you want them to think about, so they'll do what it is you actually want them to do. And as you realize the possibilities of that and recognize how these patterns are just a small part of a much greater reservoir of techniques, an arsenal of techniques that can get you everything you want in life, I'm curious how excited you are about learning the next one and going even further into the system now. Type in your answer. Right? That's a drill that you can. Thank you. You guys are awesome. Thank you for the nice compliments. But my point is, you know, you can use this like a drill. You can just take these words and string them together over and over and over again, and it will cause your language centers to actually modify and change. You'll stumble a little bit at first, but you'll find yourself rapidly using them in all the right ways that allow you to quickly and easily become more powerful with your hypnotic language. And as you recognize it's already happening because you've learned it, you'll naturally discover yourself using it more and more because you understand how to use it now, don't you? So here are some more real-world conversational examples. Again, this is the next phase to learning hypnotic language. What you want to do is you don't want to just speak them. You want to write them out. You want to understand the structure, the pattern languaging, and you want to use them in writing. You want to write them over and over and over again, so you can aesthetically wire them into your neurology. That's why writing is such an important piece of CPI and killer influence training. Right? When you go to Killer Influence, you're going to do a lot of writing when you reach the hypnotic language component, because you need to put this information in through multiple channels at the same time if you want to be able to use it effectively out in the real world, naturally and organically. So let me read some of these examples to you. I want you to understand these are just examples. You can write them down, you can copy them, but I want you to create your own as well. I want you to write as many of these out as you can to install the structure in your mind. So let's just go ahead and go through these real quick. As you realize the power of these patterns, you'll naturally want to learn more. As you become aware of how these patterns work, you'll quickly find new ways of using them to improve every aspect of your life. Have you noticed yet how powerfully these patterns work, even when you know they are being used on you for your highest good? See how very conversational they don't sound up weird or confusing in any way. And that's the beauty of these particular language patterns, is they sound very, very specific, very, very straightforward, even though they're installing very, very powerful hypnotic processes into your unconscious. Okay? Are we good with this? Yes or yes? Okay, excellent. Let's move on. Like I said, I'm trying to keep this as close as I can to 2 hours or so, so I want to make sure you get this. Some of you already have these, which is cool. All right, the next language pattern we're going to talk about is the cause and effect language pattern. And the reason behind the cause and effect language pattern is utilizing this language pattern, you can literally take any two things that have no seeming causal effect and link them using this structure. And that is the one thing I want you to get about this particular language pattern, is that, sorry, I'm going to go ahead and do something I should have done a long time earlier. I was trying to keep the phone on because in case I needed to get a message from Henry or Brandon, who were running the webinar. But apparently the phone does not have a silent on it, so I had to turn it off. So I apologize for taking up your time or distracting you with those alarms. It's now off. I should have taken my own advice. Anyway, getting back to this. Cause and effect. I believe that certain language patterns are extensions of filters in your neurology. As information comes into our system, the first thing that happens is we become aware of it, either consciously or unconsciously. Then what happens is our neurology tries to determine which parts caused what. They try to create a cause and effect relationship between A and B. What this language pattern does, when you understand its structure, is it creates causal linkages between two things that may absolutely have no connection to each other whatsoever. It's also a presupposition, just like your awareness pattern, but it does something very, very different. It creates causal X causes Y effects. So you see there's an X and an arrow here, an X and an arrow and a Y. Each of these is like a placeholder for information. X is usually a pace. Now, in terms of hypnotic languaging, when we say pace, we're using it a little bit differently than we use it in the rapport section. In the rapport section, when we say we pace something, that means that we are becoming like it as much as we can. When we pace, if someone's standing a certain way and we stand the way they stand, we are pacing them. If somebody says a certain word and we say the word back in the same way, we are pacing them. That is one meaning of the word pace. This is one of the reasons I try to stay away from NLP-based jargon, but it's used here, so I'm gonna explain it. In this context, in a linguistic context, when we're talking about a pace, what we're really saying is truism. We're talking about something that we can verify either through our five senses or through our cognition that it is true. Does that make sense? Type yes or yes. Okay, good. So, for example, as you're looking at the slide is white, right? The arrow is red. Those are paces, right? I could take that same structure and I could say, and my Y is my lead. My lead is what I would want you to think or do or believe, right? So we call that a lead. When we pace something, we become like it, or we call attention to something that is true. A lead is what we want them to do. The arrow represents the word we use to link those things together. We'll talk about those words in just a minute. Okay? This creates a relationship in our mind of X causing Y. It does not have to be true. In fact, in many cases, it isn't. But your brain will do its best to make it true or make it feel true, and it will act upon it as if it's true. Okay? Let's see here. So I'm going to actually use the two paces I gave you first to show you. The very fact that the white page and the red arrow are in that structure allows you to use and understand cause and effect more effectively because you understand it's a basic X causes Y structure, right? The fact that the white on this, the white is something we paste, the allows is the arrow, the Y is the lead. When you plunk them together, even though it's really kind of outside of any particular context, do you know how it, did you notice how it kind of tried to, it kind of sort of made sense? It had like a causal effect to it. Yeah, Paul lost me. I just made that one up on the fly. We'll do some other examples. But I just want you to install this structure. X is always something that is true. So for example, the very fact that you're sitting at your computer or on your phone listening and watching this webinar causes you to begin to understand how to create powerful hypnotic language patterns in a way that's structurally correct. Wouldn't you agree? True or true? Excellent. So let's think about that sentence. Let's think about that sentence because the majority of you are saying, yeah, it's true. How does you sitting on this webinar or sitting at home listening or watching this webinar cause you to do anything? How does it actually cause you to do anything? Type your answers. You see, there's absolutely no actual logical causal effect for the X and the Y, but your brain made one up. In fact, what's probably happening now is you're generating a rationale to justify the decision you made. But there's absolutely no causal relationship between you listening to what I'm saying on this webinar and your ability to create hypnotic language. One does not cause the other, but your brain made it feel that way because of the structure. X is something that is always true. Y is always something that you want them to believe, think, or do. It's a lead. Okay? It implies a cause and effect. And it works. And by the way, this is also the language of belief. When people talk about beliefs, this is the structure that they use. Okay? So words in this category include and, as, cause, because, since, as, when you, as soon as. If we were writing this out, we don't have, you can do this on your own time. Come up with 3 more that fit this category. The most powerful one, the most obvious one in this category is the is the because. Because they've actually researched the word because and discovered that you can get up to a 93% compliance rate just by inserting the word because into a request. The most common, the most famous example of this was when they shut down a college campus. They shut down all the photocopiers on a college campus during finals week or midterm week, and they only had one copier operating. It was in the library. There were lines out the door for people waiting to use this copier, and they would send students in to ask to cut line, and they would use different examples. And they found out that anytime they made the request and the request was followed by a because, in other words, in email marketing, we would call this a reason why. They were allowed in line a high number of times in the 90s. In fact, and whenever because was used, it was a 93%, 94% success rate. Even to the point where if the person cutting the line said, "Excuse me, could I cut in line because I really need to make copies?" They would still let them cut in line 93, 94% of the time, just because the word because was used effectively in the sentence. Do you understand what I just said, the connotations of that? Type in yes or yes. Okay, now here's a funny story. Here's a funny story. About 10 years ago, I guess, maybe more or less, a couple of people in the pickup and seduction world got a hold of that statistic. They wanted to find out They wanted to find out if this was really true, and if it was true, would it work at a singles bar? So they came up with this interesting experiment. They got a hidden camera. You may even still be able to find this video somewhere on YouTube. They got a hidden camera. They found an attractive woman sitting at the bar by herself, and they would walk up and ask her to give up her bar stool using the word because. And what's funny is literally what happens is the guy walks up, he asks for the bar stool, uses the word because, she gets up, gives him the chair, walks away, and as the camera's fading, you hear him whisper to himself, "Holy shit, that worked." This is one of those things. It doesn't. You don't realize just how powerful this is. But the cause and effect language pattern is such a fundamental building block of your thoughts, of the way you think, that just hearing the pattern causes your brain to have the effect. It's that powerful. And it can make some of them, even the most ridiculous things, sound plausible if you plug the structure in. X causes Y. Now, these words here, the and, the as, the cause, the because, the since, the as, the when you, as you, that would go in the space where this arrow is. So your X would be something that's true, something you can see, something you can hear, something you can feel, something you can smell, something you can taste, or something you could just become aware of is your X. Your pattern word goes here, and what you want them to do, believe, think, or say goes here. Does that make sense? Are you with me? Good. This is super, super powerful. Okay? This is awareness is still the king, but cause and effect, really close. Really close. So let's review real quick from a functional standpoint what these patterns allow you to do. Using awareness, you can cause the mind to become aware of any or undergo any state, process, or experience that follows it. You understand that? The moment I use one of these words, your brain does whatever follows it. Okay? So I can make you become aware of, using this pattern, I can make you become aware of and think about anything I want you to think about. Using cause and effect, I can create a causal effect between anything I can point to or talk about and anything I want you to say or do. I can literally say, hearing the sound of my voice causes you to understand how to use cause and effect language better. And it'll make perfect sense, doesn't it? Except it doesn't. Not to make Brian feel bad or anything. How does you hearing me talk about that cause you to do it better? How does it make you do anything? We accept it as true because of the structure of the language. It is the language of belief. All beliefs are stated this way. When you use this pattern like this, it goes right in with the same level of passion and power and believability as a belief. All right? And we're just still getting started, okay? Because now we've learned how to direct people's awareness. We've learned how to create causal linkages between things that we can show them or talk about and things that we want them to do. Now, we're going to teach you how to make whatever you create mean whatever you want it to mean. But first, we're going to look at some sample sentences. So example sentences in this category. Simply viewing this video automatically gives you the power to use your hypnotic language skills more powerfully. Sounds perfectly plausible, right? As you sit there easily absorbing this material, your inner mind is already finding new ways to use this information, and that feels really good, doesn't it? Do these sentences sound weird? Do they sound odd or confusing in any way? Do they make sense? Except if you go back and look at them, once again, the same process applies. How does any of it cause anything? But that's what I mean. This creates what we call pseudo-logic. It amplifies the plausibility factor, and it just plays it in your mind as if it's actually true. Yes, you can code your beliefs with this, Edwin. Yes, this is how we do it, actually. In our work on conversational belief change, we have a class coming up in December on that. If you had CPI 1 or Killer Influence, you can jump into that advanced class and learn how to change people's beliefs during normal conversations. It's called reframing and sleight of mouth. It's really, really cool. So these are some sample sentences. Write them out. Just write them out for yourself to install this language pattern powerfully in your mind. Okay. Next one is going to be another really cool language pattern. It has a very, very similar structure to complex equivalence, and this are to a cause and effect rather, and that is complex equivalence. X means Y. In a cause and effect relationship, the X and the Y are in a sequence, right? One causes the other. In a complex equivalence relationship, X and Y mean the same thing, right? X equals Y. And your X, again, is always. It's always something you can visually, auditorily, sensorily, kinesthetically, olfactory, gustatorily verify. Anything you can verify through the five senses, or something you can verify by becoming aware of it. Right? If you can verify it through any form of awareness, then it's a truism, and therefore you can use it in the X box. Right? The Y, or the equal sign, is equivalent to your pattern language. And words in this category, I don't know if we have these here. Okay, yeah. So write these down. These words did not make it into the PowerPoint, but these are words that are in the complex equivalence category. And obviously the first one, means, is, equals, equivalent, same as, like. X is like Y. Get it? Type yes or yes. Yeah. The two patterns are so close, I call them cousins. But the difference is important enough that they deserve their own category. In complex equivalence, X and Y mean the same thing. So if you were looking at a bumper sticker or one of those buttons like time is money, a day without fishing is like a day without sunshine. These are complex equivalence statements, right? Real quick aside, men tend to think more strongly in cause and effect. Women tend to have a little bit more of a preference for complex equivalence languaging. It's one of the reasons we have problems communicating between the genders. If you just understood this idea, you could actually really smooth out your relationships in a powerful way. We cover this in depth in Killer Influence, especially in Killer Influence, which is all about learning how to attract people, smooth out relationships, enhance and facilitate communications, make people like, love, and trust us. Okay. When you put the two together, when you put X causes Y equals Z, in other words, you take the cause and effect structure and you merge it with the complex equivalence structure, you get the sequence in the red letters at the bottom of the screen. Oops, sorry. The bottom of the screen, the X causes Y equals Z phenomena. This is actually the core structure of a belief as we understand it. X will cause Y, and we assign a meaning to that causal sequence. Does that make sense? As you sit here listening to the sound of my voice explaining these language patterns, it causes you to understand how these language patterns affect your thoughts. And that means you'll be able to use them more powerfully and more effectively automatically because you know how to target your language better. Doesn't that make sense? Yes or yes? Cool. Right? Are you guys starting to see how you can put these together in all kinds of cool ways? Excellent. Okay. Good. I want to make sure you get this because, again, if you write any form of sales or marketing copy, this stuff's got to be there. Right? This stuff literally reaches into people's heads and makes them become aware of what you want, causes them to do what you want, and assign whatever meaning you desire to it. Right? It's the structure of belief. Okay, is this cool? You like this? You want to go further? Okay. So I have a question for you. Remember earlier, I told you, I would take you as far as I can in the time that we have. I'd show you where to go for more if you wanted to. Now, most of you know, if you've been hanging around Planet David for any length of time, that I have a very, very strong bias about how to learn this material. And people always call me up and they always ask me. They say, David, I need your advice. I want to learn this, and I'm torn. Do I come to Killer Influence in person, or should I just buy the videos? The prices are roughly the same usually, because I usually give an early bird special. So the price point isn't really the problem. And without hesitation, without a second doubt, I always say, when you can, come to the live events. The reason is because in a live event, I can observe you, I can interact with you, I can drill you, I can give you opportunity after opportunity after opportunity to work with people and install these language patterns. In a video, if you can't make the live training, then the video is a good second option. But the optimal way to learn this is to come to the live event, use the training videos as a supplement, and then build on that. And then usually when we're at the trainings, what I actually do is I take each person aside, or I give each person at the live event an opportunity to consult with me on creating the exact training funnel for them, the exact series of trainings and products to give them the fastest return to achieving their goals as humanly possible. That's something I do with all of my students. I'm even going to do it for you guys. So when I sat back to think about how can I help you learn? How can I take your learning further? How can I get this into you in the fastest, most efficient way possible? I sat back and I thought about, okay, what would be like the dream? What would be if I could give you the absolute best way to learn this material now? What would it look like? And I started putting together a list of things that I think might be useful for you. So if it's okay, I'd like to go ahead and explain that to you. Would that be okay? Okay. So first and foremost, I went through my archives, and this is what I found. I found a very powerful, very comprehensive copy of my original Killer Influence video program. This covers the entire CPI model. It covers all the 7 language patterns. It covers cold reading. It covers social hypnotic operators. It covers aspects of lie detection, attraction operators. And Killer Influence is the study of covert of hypnotic operators. It's an expansion on the original CPI model I developed for me. Remember, I didn't develop these things initially for you guys. I developed them for me to kind of hack my life and get ahead. And it just turns out that there are a lot of people who have similar desires and issues and things like that. And so when we look at Killer Influence, it's an expansion on the CPI model. And it takes us into the realms of how to position ourselves through the spatial orientations and how to get inside people's head. It gives you the entire funnel, the six-step CPI persuasion algorithm: state control, rapport, hypnotic language, state management, how to get into a person's process and target their emotional hot button so that you can automatically link everything a person most wants and needs and desires to whatever it is you want them to do. We'll teach you the 4 horsemen of irresistible hypnotic influence: authority, which makes people just automatically want to comply to whatever you say or do. We're going to teach you about attractivity and the 10 different weapons of unstoppable attraction that cause people to just like and love and trust you and want to be with you and just paint you in the best possible picture. And we're going to teach you about all the affinity tactics, how to create powerful senses of connection and liking and rapport with other people. So they just want to be part of your group, or they want you to be part of theirs. If you've ever felt like an outsider, if you've ever wanted to have your own tribe, affinity tactics combined with attractivity and authority will paint you as the most irresistibly charismatic person they've ever met. It's really, really powerful stuff, especially when you put it all together. The drills are there. All the state control drills are there. Regular price for that is $1,297. We're going to add something else. we're going to add a very special program that I did a couple of years back. It's called Speed Attraction, Rapid Attraction Secrets. And this is my my complete cold approach to closing the deal on attraction romance. A lot of you know this, some of you don't, that in 2005, I was actually voted one of the top 10 attraction experts of the year by Art of Approaching and SeductionLayer.com. And the reason I was voted that was not because I could go out and just rack them up, you know, one after the other. It was because I discovered through certain types of techniques and things like that, how to create such intense levels of connection and love and attraction in my partners that they would literally be willing to do anything for me. And when I mean literally anything, I'm talking about paying for my vacations, doing my laundry, buying me dinner, taking me out to the movies, and they were happy to do it. You see, there's no force more powerful than a completely happy, satisfied lover, woman in this case, but it can also work just as easily on men. The Rapid Attraction Secrets Protocol was actually was originally designed as a co-ed workshop. And what it does, I actually had a lady take the class, and she literally went into the lobby where there's this really cute younger guy working. She put the whammy on him. She was 10 years older than him. They dated for weeks before he realized that she was actually significantly older than him, and that kind of wigged him out. But they were having a ball. So really the problem was his. But she just took this material from Rapid Attraction Secrets and just put the whammy on the guy. So when I talk about these things, even though a lot of them were originally developed from that side of things, they work we modified them and made them very, very usable for women. So if you're looking, ladies, if you're looking for a way to rapidly attract the right kind of people, and there are certain sticking points that women have when it comes to dating and attraction, and there are certain sticking points that men have, and they're not the same. We cover both sides in Rapid Attraction Secrets. This particular version, I think, was a very small class. We have another version that had a much larger female contingent in it. And maybe what I'll do is, if people want, I'll either swap out this one and use the other one, or we'll just add it as an extra bonus for people who want to do that. But the regular price for that is $1,497 value. But we're not going to stop there. We're going to actually add more stuff to this. We're going to talk about energy hypnosis and speed healing. Now, a lot of you came to my work through the learning how to heal yourselves, or learning how to remove pain and things like that. This is a training I did a couple years back, where I was introducing this idea that energy and trance and hypnosis and the body, when they combine them together, you get a whole that's greater than the sum of the parts. So if you're familiar with the spinning technique, you'll learn all the ins and outs, all the secret things about spinning that we don't teach in the YouTube videos, and we only teach in our live trainings. The conversational hypnotic language part of spinning. If you've been using spinning at all, you may have noticed you actually don't need to use the exact languaging I use. It's a very forgiving process. But if you understand the hypnotic language pieces, it's much more powerful, because you can bring more of a person's neurology to bear on that. Regular price for that is $97, but we're not going to stop there. Total value so far, by the way, is $2,891. But we're going to add another great product, which is Stealth Selling Secrets. Stealth Selling Secrets was actually a breakout course that we taught as an adjunct to the Killer Influence and CPI system. In this particular program, it's co-taught with my good friend and colleague, James Situ. And now James, to give you a little background on him, I call him my corporate seduction specialist. James has the unique job of being a headhunter for Fortune 500 companies. So a lot of you expressed an interest in using this stuff for business applications. This is pinpointed and targeted directly to utilizing echo technique, frame control, criteria and values in any business context. We talk about the three primary positions you could take within a frame. We explain frames very, very fully. Remember this, whether you are a first-time person on this webinar, or you've been to multiple webinars and have a bunch of our products, he who controls the frame controls the game. If you're in control of the frame, you control the meanings people assign to things, you have the greatest amount of influence in that given interaction. This particular training targets and drills down on both physiological state control, psychological state control, and frame control. How to go from dominant to subordinate to equal, and from all points in between within a frame. And then it drills down onto one of the most powerful operators that we have. It's criteria and values. Criteria and values are the emotional drivers behind the things we do. And for everything that we think is desirable in our life, we have a checklist of criteria that have to be met. And when that checklist is complete, the body and the mind generate a feeling that we like, that we want more of, and we assign that to being something good in our life. Now, in this particular training, we actually had a gentleman who was a very skeptical guy. He was in pharmaceutical sales, and he actively fought us, debated us on each aspect of the criteria and values process, to the point where we just decided to use it on him. And you could literally see him being beaten into philosophical submission as he tries to fight the technique and realizes the power of it as it's being used on him. Now, the nice thing about criteria and value solicitation is it's not features and benefits selling. It's about creating relationships. It's about finding out what people most desire and want in their life, how they recognize that they're getting it, and linking through languaging, through your use of your body and other presentation skills, linking what they want to what you are offering. And if you do that properly, resistance to selling, actually you're no longer selling, you're just giving them an opportunity to buy. In fact, most of the time, they'll ask you to buy. I remember one time I was doing a training in Israel, and we were teaching a variation of criteria and values, which is the echo technique. And in that process, we were working with people who were not salesmen. They were actually R&D people. And one guy was talking to the other, and this company made smart houses. You would wear a little bracelet, and it would send information about your health and your vital statistics to a central computer, and it would just monitor where you were in the house, your blood sugar levels, and if you fell down or something, it would automatically call the ambulances or the paramedics or whatever. And so these two guys are talking, and they're having a conversation about this guy's dad, and they're just practicing the echo technique. Now, I don't know if the guy just had this download or whatever, but he did a perfect criteria and values sales presentation and didn't realize it. What literally happened was, as the subject was describing his father, who was very old, needed constant looking after, had a lot of problems, the guy who's doing the echo technique would echo the words back, and he would actually just talk about how the house he was working on and designing satisfied all of that. And about halfway through the talk, Are we back? Okay. All right. Okay. All right. I all right. I apologize for that, guys. I have no idea where we lost it, so I'm just going to go ahead and back in. So what we're doing is killer influence training. It's 4 days. If you sign up tonight before the deadline, we're going to add an extra bonus day. We did this once before, and we're almost full, but we have a few slots left for that. Its regular value is $1,997. So if you look at the entire package, and this would be like the one of the most powerful training processes you could engage in. We're going to give you a total of $5,282 worth of awesome stuff. We're talking about the Killer Influence Secrets of Covert Hypnosis home video training program, along with the manual, $1,297 value. Speed Attraction, Rapid Attraction Secrets, also $1,497 value. We're going to include the Energy Hypnosis Speed Healing Training Program, that's $97. Stealth Selling Secrets, $297 value. Anchors in Action, which I think is a really powerful technique to have. I'm more a fan of stealing anchors than I am of setting them. I'll explain that at the stretch training. Value $97. And of course, we're going to include the 4-day live event in San Diego, January 24th through the 29th. So if you're interested in that, it's a total value of $5,282. If you're really committed to getting the biggest bang for your buck, to take your life to the next level, to become a master of this level of influence, and get personally trained by me, because I would love to meet you. I'd love to work with you. I want to help you win. Okay, the total value, total product package is $5,282, but we're not going to make you pay $5,282. In fact, if you jump on this webinar, on this offer tonight, we're going to slash that price. It's not going to be $41.67. It's not going to be $29 or $26.97. We're going to give you the entire package right now for $997, or 3 payments of just $399. There's a link right to the side there. Just follow the arrow. For those of you first 20 people that jump in tonight before the replay hits, we're going to give you an extra bonus day. Instead of 4 days in San Diego with me, you'll do the 4-day training with everybody else. And then on day 5, you get to come in with a very small elite group of people to hot seat and target and hone in on the exact sticking points that you have in your life, in your applications. We're going to drill down deep. We're going to iron out all of the bugs that you have. We're going to outline a plan, and we're going to drill you on it over and over and over again until you can do it in your sleep. If you've ever seen my mastermind trainings where I just go around and I find out what it is we need to work on, and we create that lesson plan right on the spot, you're going to get a full day of it with me in San Diego after you've been thoroughly trained in the Killer Influence system. So if you're interested in that, you can get all of that, $5,282. And that doesn't actually include the extra money it would charge for that extra day. $5,282 value. Get it all for $997, or just 3 payments of $399. Just go ahead and click that buy button now, or use the payment plans, whatever you want. And I'll hang out for a few while you guys do that. I'm going to go to the chat room. I'm going to see if I can answer any questions while you're doing that. So hold tight. By the way, I apologize for getting cut off earlier. One of the things that I really love about the Killer Influence system is that it really allows you to go anywhere and do anything. I remember one time at band camp, one of the things that people were asking about making traffic, influencing traffic. One of the things that we do in the Killer Influence program is that we teach you how to take that state control stuff, and there's a technique we call sphere of influence. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen the original CPI videos that we offer, but there's a testimony in there by a guy named Scott Sandlin where I was teaching him how to do this remote influence technique, and he was doing it on a Vegas showgirl, and within moments, the woman literally came off stage and started singing to him. and then the night just got more intense. It was his first time. It was his first time doing that stuff. So I'm going to go run back to see what questions we have, so I can flesh out this package for you, and you guys get a little bit of understanding of what's going on here. When are the live days? The live days are going to be January. Let me just pull this up real quick, make sure I've got it for you. January 24th, 25th, 26th, 27th. The bonus day will be Monday, January 28th. And it will be a full day. So we'll start about 9 o'clock. We'll go till 6. We'll also send you a complete list of hotels in and around that area. And once again, the 4-day killer influence will be the whole killer influence system. We'll start with the CPI model. You'll go through all the state control and rapport drills. You'll go through all the language patterns. You'll be able to do those backwards and forwards in your sleep. You'll also learn about echo technique. You'll learn about 3 magic questions. You'll learn about the resistance removal protocol that causes people to come up with reasons for doing the exact things they just told you they didn't want to do. You'll learn what we call DRTs, which stand for dirty, rotten tricks. These are things that I learned over the course of my tenure as Darth Snyder when I was exploring the dark side of the Force, so to speak. These are tactics and strategies that allow you to generate attraction in people and get them to want to do what you want them to do that most people would never see coming. It's very powerful. But in this particular training, we're also going to cover the dark side of influence. And what I mean by that is I'm talking about it more in terms of how to protect yourself from the dark side of the Force, for lack of a better word. Like I said earlier, I've been doing a lot of research lately on sociopaths and narcissists and psychopaths and really trying to hone in on what are the tactics and techniques that these predators use to get it, to cause people to think they're good people when they're really not. And in the process of studying this, I've gone through many different sources, and I'm putting together a program that will simultaneously allow you to understand these tactics, to recognize these tactics, and when necessary, use them or protect yourself against them. Now, the important thing to remember is the tactics themselves that these people use aren't evil. It's the ends results they're using them for that make them predators. So you can take these same ideas, these same concepts, which are very wonderful things. They're just being exploited by bad people, and use them to improve every aspect of your life. There are actually 10 categories of influence in the psychology of attraction that we'll be talking about. So it dramatically expands our understanding of the attractivity horseman, the attractivity pillar, which when we talk about attractivity, if authority is the king of the authority or the influence hill, attractivity would be the queen. You see, authority causes people to comply. It causes people to just obey. But they don't like it. They don't necessarily want to do it. They just do it because they feel compelled to. Attractivity has a very, very different energy to it. Attractivity causes people to want to do the things you want them to do. And when I say attractivity is the study and use of attraction. It's the ability to create attraction in people or to generate a perception of being attractive in people at will. David D'Angelo, a very famous dating coach many, many moons ago, said attraction is not a choice. You don't get to choose who you're attracted to. That's true enough to be true. But the truth is that you do have a tremendous amount of control over who you choose to attract. And that's what this is about. Attractivity is the ability to create powerful attraction feelings in people that make them want to please you, that make them want to do what you want them to do. Now remember, everything we do is ethical and honest. You don't ever need to do evil shit to be effective. That's the beauty of this, is as long as you find out what people want, you find an ethical way to link it to what you want and keep them connected to it, they will, by definition, given enough time, do business with you out of default. In many cases, objections to your proposals, whatever they may be, will drop to zero, and many times. And people will just feel good about doing things with you. Many times they'll ask you to buy the product or service that you're talking about. It eliminates the need for cause and or for features and benefits presentations. It's just one of those processes just will make your life easier. And it's dramatically changed my life, and it's allowed me to help so many people. I know it'll help you. Let me look and see if we have any more questions real quick. Can I email? Yes, we're going to, as soon as we firm up the venue location, Susan, we'll send you the dates for Identity by Design. We're still going through finding a good solid hotel. It's likely now that based on what we were told about the weather reports in Sydney at that time, that we're probably going to move the training to March, because I'm told it's a better time for everybody. But once again, we're just really basically nailing down the venue. Look for that. And once we have the venue up, it'll be on the NLP Power website, and you can log in and join. We have the September training coming up in San Diego. I know it's a little bit of a haul for you to come from Australia, but if you're interested in getting started sooner, you're more than welcome to jump into that. Okay. Let me see if there are any more questions. Cool. Hidden laws of mental. Missed that. What about the hidden laws of mental dynamics? I didn't get the whole question, but actually, hidden laws of mental dynamics are actually taught in Killer Influence. There's a section in the Killer Influence manual. I believe it's titled 21st Century Hypnosis, where we cover the 7 laws of the mind, which is what our hidden laws of mental dynamics really is. There's the law of fractionation, the law of compliance, the law of compounding, law of subconscious response, and about 3 or 4 other very important laws that when you combine them into your law of attraction practices, or your self-hypnotic practices, or your hypnotherapeutic practices, create very, very powerful, the ability to create very, very powerful installations in people. So they're very important, but I believe last time I looked, they were still in the Killer Influence manual, because it's part of our 21st Century Hypnosis chapter. So I hope that answers the question on that. Oh, yeah. Some of you may have purchased products previously that are on this list. I was informed by our guys over at NLP Power that if you already own one of the products on this list, they will substitute it for you with a product that you do not have. I believe Brandon and Henry are going to be posting a list of alternative products in the chat box. So have no fear. We're going to make sure that the package you get is unique and special, that there's no duplication. We're going to follow up with you. We're going to make sure that all of these things are in your inbox and your access to them. I'm debating. Every now and then I do things that really kind of piss off my webinar guys. Brandon and Henry, they never know when I'm going to do weird shit. How many people here, just by a show of hands, are interested in face reading at all? Go ahead, just type in the chat box. Okay. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Tomorrow, I'm going to start teaching a 3-day Chinese face reading course combined with medical hypnotherapy. We're going to videotape that course. For anyone who jumps on the webinar special tonight, I will give you a free, unedited copy of the entire training, all 3 days. You like it, type yes or yes. Yep. Just click the button, and as soon as it's done, I upload it. It's yours. Hit those buttons now, guys. I'm excited about it. If I could, I'd live stream it, but right now we don't have the tech people in place to do it. So the next time we do it, we'll probably add a live stream. But yeah, I'll give you guys the face reading course, and you guys can play with it and find out. Okay, but go ahead and click the links. Let me see if there are any other questions. Is the energetics method involving how to dress included in vibrational influence? No, it's not. Actually, let me clarify that. We talk about it in Killer Influence. The system itself is trademarked and copyrighted. So we talk about it. We talk about where to go to get the process done to you, but we do not teach it per se, although I figured out how to reverse engineer a lot of it out of respect for the person who taught it to me, out of respect for the, their property and their intellectual property. We don't teach their material. We'll talk about their material. We'll compare it. We'll share the results of it. But for the sake of ethics and intellectual property, we don't teach it per se. Okay. Do we have plans to have any more live streaming coming up? We don't have any immediate plans to live stream anything. That doesn't mean we're not going to. The interesting thing about how we work a lot of times here at NLP Power is a lot of times we don't realize we have the technology to do something until the last minute. And we say, hey, let's do this. Like, for instance, the how many guys were on the Secrets of Personality Transformation live stream? Was anybody? There wasn't that many. Were any of you on that live stream? Yeah, Danny was there. We didn't actually decide to do that until like the week or two before the event. It was really kind of just something we were toying around with. We didn't have a lot of confidence in the internet here at the hotel, so we just brought our own. And for the most part, it worked out really well. We only had one or two tech glitches. My poor buddy TJ, who was assisting me, we had one camera snafu. It happened when he had developed called the Wham Bam Grey Room Slam, and it's a technique that teaches you to do the entire Grey Room process in 30 seconds. And he did this magnificent demo. And right as the person was sitting down to go into the chair to do the demo, the camera battery died, and we lost the feed. So we're probably going to have him reshoot that and add it into the Secrets of Personality Transformation video at some point. But overall, it was excellent content. The camera work was good. Brandon handled the live stream magnificently well. So I have a lot more confidence. I have a lot more confidence in our ability to live stream, and I have no problem with doing it. But once again, if you ask me, come to do the live stream or come to the live training, I'm going to tell you, get your ass to the training. NLP Bootcamp. We have a NLP practitioner certification coming up in October, second week of October. It's an 8-day training. I love NLP. I'm certified. I certify people in NLP. I recommend NLP to be the last thing you study. Okay, I firmly believe, and NLP. I make more money from the NLP trainings, but what I have seen over and over again is that people who come in cold with no prior training, going through any NLP certification, compared to people who come in with a solid foundation in hypnosis and CPI or Killer Influence prior to coming in, it's night and day. The people who come out of the training with nothing are good, they're competent, but the people who have the previous hypnosis real world training or the CPI training, they're up here. They're like superstars. They're like master prac level because they can take anything and just riff on it. So you guys, some of you guys know this, some of you don't. I taught NLP and hypnosis for close to 10 years before I was ever willing to certify people. And the reason I did that was because when I was running the world's largest NLP and hypnosis practice group in the world, it's called the Somnambulistic Sleepwalkers or Sleepwalkers International, we were based in LA. We had chapters in 13 states, 5 countries. And as a result of that, everybody who wanted to learn about NLP, hypnosis, attraction, seduction, they would come to these trainings. And so I saw the product of all these other training organizations. I'm talking the Society of NLP, the AB NLP, the National Guild, Hypnotic Motivation Institute, lots of smaller hypnosis organizations. And by and large, what I saw were people who had certificates on their walls and no actual skills they could actually utilize on demand. What I mean by that was these people had studied, they had work, they could look at somebody and pick them apart, they could critique them, they could they could spew the jargon like they were born to it. They could even cite chapter and verse. Bandler said this on this page and Grinder said this on this page. But when you asked them to get up and actually do something, they always found an excuse not to. And in the few times they did, they sucked. They were terrible. Because what happened was the trainers sold them a certificate, not the skill set. And I watched people for years coming into my trainings with 10, 20, 30 years of hypnosis or NLP, right next to people with 20 minutes of experience, and the people with 20 minutes of real hands-on work were doing just as well as the people with 20 years experience. If the people with 20 minutes experience came to a couple of sessions, their skills started to do this. Why? It was because of the hands-on real-world feedback. And that's what we're about. We do 3 times more hands-on than any other trainer in the industry because I train people in influence skills like I train my martial arts students. We train you over and we drill you over and over and over again until you can do these things backwards and forwards. And the reason for that is because I made a vow never to be like those other people. My name is on your certificate. This is purely selfish, guys. My name is on your certificate. And if you come out of that training and you suck, you can't perform, you can't do the work, that's on me. I'm committed to helping you get this, but you got to meet me. Come to the events, get the live training, use the videos to supplement, tune into the masterminds and practice your skills. Follow the training protocols, and you will be head and shoulders above the rest of the pack, and you'll get everything you want in life because you'll have the tools. You'll know how to do it, right? So, yes, we're doing NLP in October. It's a great class. Get Killer Influence first, or whatever fits that bill. If it's a real world like in September, do that. But come to the Killer Influence training. Get the hands-on real world skills you need, and you'll be amazed at what you can do. Okay, let me look at more questions here. Have I considered the Gold Coast in Queensland? Oh yeah, Edwin just, yes, that's true, Edwin. We always pay twice. Edwin, he's obviously been on a webinar or two before, or to one of my live trainings. What that means is you always pay twice, is that for everything you get from me, whether it's Killer Influence or real world hypnosis or anything, I tell all of my students, or everything you get from me, you will always pay twice. The first payment is easy. That's the money. You can always make more money. Success. It's the second payment. Takes you into the realm of ownership. The first payment just gives you access. Gives you access to the information, access to me, access to the material. It's the second payment that most people refuse to make, the one that gives you ownership. And that payment is time, energy, effort, rolling up your sleeves, doing the drills and getting the skills. That's what takes you from access to ownership. It installs and you become those skills. So they will serve you loyally everywhere you go. Always make the second payment because that's the one that takes you from the pack to the peak. Okay. We're coming up on our end time. Do the drills, you got it, Jerome. Do the drills, get the skills. Also, is the live Killer Influence included? Yes, yes, Terry. The live Killer Influence is included in the entire package. So you'll get You'll get every single thing. You'll get the Killer Influence 4-day live event. You'll get the Anchors in Action video training, $97 value. You get the Stealth Selling Secrets, $297 value. You get the Energy Hypnosis Speed Healing tape, video tape, $97. Speed Attraction, Rapid Attraction Secrets, $1,497 value. Killer Influence, $1,297. You get all this. If you were to buy it individually, it'd be $5,282. You can get it all today for only $997, or 3 simple payments of $399. It's one of the best deals out there. And if you get in today, first 20 people that get in today, I'm going to throw in a bonus copy, the raw video of my entire Secrets of Face Reading and Chinese Medical Hypnotherapy training that we're starting tomorrow. And those videos will be uploaded to your members area just as soon as we complete them, and can get them into our cloud server, and the download links will be made available only to you people. I didn't really have an intention of releasing that content, but I will give it to you for jumping in on this and getting committed to your own sense of personal success and well-being. So I'm committed to helping you get the things you want the way you want them. Meet me in San Diego, and we'll rock it. Okay? I've been informed we've got less than 10 spots left. If people want to jump in, when would now be a good time to do that? So they're going fast. Let me see if I have any more questions that, let's see here. Learn by doing and by seeing. Edwin, you've got some great comments. Coming to the East Coast. I've been invited to some conventions on the East Coast, but I have no solid plans as of yet. It's interesting that more of my international dates are more solid than my in-state dates. You're welcome, Edwin. How about those of us that signed up last month? Can you elaborate on that, Steve? What are we talking about? You talking about the CPI special? Oh, you got it. The comments are flying fast. Oh, thanks, Mike. Okay. All right. Any other questions? Okay, just jumped in. Great, Terry. And yes, we're happy to swap out whatever you need. Brandon should be able to help you with that, Terry. We try to, we try to be very, very customer oriented. In fact, I never told anybody what I'm about to tell you. Back in my early days when I first moved to Florida, I actually worked for a shoe store called Tom McCann. Anybody remember Tom McCann? I see you got the sales on the main site. Will they continue? There are certain sales going on, but they're not the same promotion as this. So I didn't see anybody. Nobody remembers Tom McCann. I must be old. He still makes shoes, yeah. Well, interesting. One of the very first sales jobs I ever had, aside from door-to-door insurance sales, was actually selling shoes. And one of the big things that Tom McCann liked to push was their service. And for 2 or 3 years in a row, I won sales award after sales award, and I was the top guy in customer service. So taking care of my customers, taking care of my students has always, always, always been very, very important to me. I don't look at you guys as just nameless faces out there in the void. I think of you in a lot of ways as my extended family, and I'm very grateful for all of you. The fact that you come on the webinars and you support us, and especially here at HypnoThoughts, every 5 minutes someone's coming up to me and talking to me about the videos, and I feel a real desire to just hug all of you. I can't, obviously, for logistical reasons, but I really care about making sure you guys get what you need. Because I know what it's like. You know what it's like to go to training after training and come away feeling like, I got something, but I don't know what it is. I got something, and I just don't feel like I can use it. I feel like everybody got something I didn't, or somebody knows more than me. I went to hundreds of trainings over the course of 20 or 30 years, longer maybe, coming away thinking, I got a little tiny piece. It's not enough. And so after sifting through all this stuff and knowing what it's like to be sitting in the audience, I was like, I need to, if I'm going to create a training, if I'm going to create a product, I want to create the kind of product I would want to own. And so that's why when I'm on these webinars, even though we were scheduled for 2 hours, I can't talk for 2 hours. It's not long enough for me because I have more I want to give, if that makes sense. But the truth is that when we create products or when we come to a seminar, I give and I give and I give, because there's always a part that says, well, if I hold one thing back, that might be the one thing that someone in that audience needed that day to change their life. And so I keep giving until a lot of times people beg me to stop. But I know what that feels like. And so my commitment to you is to make sure you can do this. You can learn this. You own this material. It's just that important for you, for me. So anyway. So let's go ahead and just, in case people forgot or unclear on what you're getting, once again, we're going to include the 4-day Killer Influence live training. Now remember, if you're one of the first 20 people, there's 2 super hidden bonuses there. Killer Influence 4-day, and with everything else, if you sign up today, you get an extra bonus day where we hot seat you. We're going to literally, you and a small group of killer influencers are going to have a full day with me. We're going to drill down on your specific persuasion applications, where your sticking points are. We're going to create drills. We're going to drill you on these things over and over and over again until you can do them in your sleep. It's a small group. It'll be just you, me, and a few dedicated students and fast actors like the other people who've signed up already. And we're also going to give you the 3-day Secrets of Face Reading and Chinese Medical Hypnotherapy live training that has never been taught before, never was intended to be released. I archive everything. I don't release everything. You'll have full access to that. We're also going to include the Anchors in Action video, $97 value. Remember, the Killer Influence training, if you just wanted that on its own, it would be almost $2,000, $1,997. Anchors in Action will teach you how to set anchors, collapse anchors, move anchors around, create sliding anchors, how to spatially anchor things so that you can cause people to go into various hypnotic states on demand, or buying trances, as I like to call them. Stealth Selling Secrets is going to teach you how to utilize frames, how to dominate frames, how to tap into people's criteria and values and hypnotic emotional hot buttons to make them salivate and want to buy your product or service. It's a $297 value. We're going to give you the complete energy hypnosis speed healing video, where you learn how to spin things, breathe. I don't know if we do color breathing in that one, but it's my approach to rapid pain removal, or in some cases, pleasure amplification. It's a $97 value. We're also going to include my complete attraction system, speed attraction, rapid attraction secrets. It literally teaches you how to get into state, how to walk into a venue, figure out who was interested in you, how to get into that state of being absolutely attractive and irresistible, how to walk up and talk to people with confidence and flow, how to find out who's into you and who's not, how to get their number, how to create connection, attraction, how to vibe them and get them turned on, so to speak. Teach you how to cold read them so you could become the most fascinating person they've ever talked to. Teach you how to transition to closing, in other words, a kiss close, a phone number close, venue changing, whatever. It's good for either gender. I've had women be very successful with this process. The 3 magic questions protocol that we teach in Rapid Attraction Secrets, some of you may be familiar with, was actually designed to teach women how to sort men into keepers and throwaways while at the same time generating tremendous attraction in them. I modified it a little bit so both genders could use it, but it's a very powerful protocol. It's going to save you a lot of time, energy, and effort. Combine that with the special things we're going to teach you about finding the psychopaths, narcissists, and Machiavellians out there, and you'll be able to rapidly figure out who are the people you want to get away from as quickly as possible, as well as keeping the ones you want to keep around. And and you can take that same process and use it in any kind of business application. I use this 3 magic questions process that we teach in Rapid Attraction Secrets every day in the clinic to sign up new patients and new clients. My clients who I do consulting with, my legal teams and stuff like that, they do tremendous success with the 3 magic questions on prospective clients, on juries, and sometimes even on expert witnesses for the opposition. They create such connection and likingness in these people that they literally waive their attorney-client privilege to answer my people's questions. And I have seen that on video. I've seen that actually happen. So Rapid Attraction Secrets, the stuff in there alone could transform your romantic life, but also your business life. $1,497 value. It's included in this package. It will change your life. Killer Influence, the whole system of covert hypnotic influence. Includes all of the CPI stuff. It includes proxemic hypnosis, how to use the spatial orientations and spatial relationships around you to create powerful positioning psychologically in people's minds. Where to sit at tables to have the most authority and the most suggestible impact on people. It's going to teach you how to cold read people so you can create powerful authority in them. It's going to teach you the 4 horsemen of irresistible hypnotic influence: authority, attractivity, affinity, and of course acquiescence. You'll learn all about those, how they work, how they differ. Social hypnosis, pre-programmed stimuli that society hypnotizes you to just, it's like a push button effect. You do this, X happens. You do this, Y happens. You'll learn how to do those things and utilize them for marketing, for sales, for attraction, for any form of human influence that you want. It's all taught in the course. We're going to teach you we'll have a special section on DRTs, code name for dirty, rotten tricks. These are some of the ethically questionable tactics that some people have used in the past to win their outcomes. I don't recommend, and I'm not a persuasion cop. I only ask that you use these things in strict compliance with your own sense of personal ethics. But if you don't know how to use them, you don't know how to defend yourself against them. So if all you care about is not being manipulated, get the course, learn the techniques so you know how to recognize these things and protect yourself from them. On top of that, we're going to teach you about something called meta programs. These are special cognitive programs that people have inside of them that cause them to think a certain way in predictable ways. And if you know how people's meta programs work, you know exactly how to talk to them to get them to want to do what you want them to do and maximize understanding. So those are just a few small parts of what the entire Killer Influence system teaches. We're going to go through as much of it as humanly possible in the 4 days together. On the 5th day, we're going to drill down to your specific sticking points and applications. So if you look at the whole package, Killer Influence video course, $1,297. Speed Attraction, Rapid Attraction Secrets is $1,497 by itself. Energy Hypnosis and Speed Healing, $97. Stealth Selling Secrets, $297. Anchors in Action, $97. And of course, the awesome Killer Influence 4+1 live covert hypnosis training and a complete video copy of the 3-day Chinese Secrets of Face Reading in Chinese medical hypnotherapy training. The cost for just the 4-day is $1,997. You're going to get that extra bonus day, which would probably be at least another $397 to do that, plus the $997 that the people paid for Secrets of Chinese Hypnotherapy. So you're looking at like over $7,000 worth of stuff if you really want to do the math. Yours today for only $997 or 3 easy payments of $399. So go ahead. We had a few slots left according to what Brandon just taught me. Grab it now before it's gone, before somebody else takes your spot. And that's about all I got for now. I'm going to go ahead and check the chat box one last time. You're welcome, Steve. I want to see you in January. Covent Garden. Nigel, hey, buddy. All right. You guys, God bless. I have to go do HypnoThoughts things. They're waiting for me. I'm already an hour late. I love you all, and we'll see you all very, very soon. God bless.